call this meeting of the City Council to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Duper.
Present.
Councilman Daly.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tempore Popescu.
Here.
Mayor Rigsby.
Here.
Councilman Leonard will arrive late, but we do have a quorum.
Okay, we will begin with the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Duper. Please stand.
Dear Father in heaven, we ask that you join us this evening and you guide us in the decision-making process for the betterment of the citizens of this fine town. We ask that you watch over and protect our citizens and keep us safe in our service to you. Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any items to be deleted or added?
No, sir.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the oral reports from the public. We have 4 requests to speak. Two of them are on line items that are being covered later. No, actually they're not. They're for item E, which is this item. So all 4 will be, and I will present them, ask for them in order. Joan Stumbaugh has a comment about closure of Barton Frontage Road.
Thank you. My name is Joan Stumbaugh. I live at 11156 San Mateo Drive here in Loma Linda. I've been a resident in Loma Linda since 1973. I do consider Loma Linda my town. I would like to read this, and I would like this to be included in with the minutes, and I will give you this when I'm finished reading it. Or would you like a copy? No. I didn't. I am very disappointed in the manner in which the City Council and Planning Commission has moved forward to close the Barton Frontage Road, San Juan Street, without completely regarding residential concerns. It seems LLU is only concerned with street parking and what benefits themselves to the detriment of the ensuing neighborhood. This neighborhood is a proud and important neighborhood with a history given to the community as well as LLU, and should not be dismissed at the whim of a larger entity with no roots to the neighborhood itself. I have several concerns regarding the frontage road, San Juan Road. Closing the frontage road entails more traffic on Campus Street, which the medical center has repeatedly told me they're trying to get traffic away from the ER, but this is not doing it. Trying to turn left or west onto Violet Moeller Way often does not give us enough room to be in the turn lane because several feet away, car length, is a right-hand turn to the emergency room. Parking of LLUMC employees has extended further south on San Lucas since the new parking structure, lending difficulty for residents traveling north and south to Violet Moeller Way. When we're on San Lucas and we're going down, there's residents parking on one side, on the west side, LLU employee parking on the right-hand side. You have 2 cars passing, and it's difficult. Parking of LLUMC employees has extended further south on San Lucas, lending difficulty for residents traveling north and south to Violet Moeller Way. It is a tighter squeeze. With the new 7-story parking structure, can't LLU parking in the residential street be eliminated? Why, with the new structure, do they have to have parking on a residential street? Parking on Violet Molnar Way. I thought this was a residential street also. I suggest this parking be allotted to help with the lack of emergency room parking instead of employee parking. If anyone goes over to the emergency room, it's hard to find a place to park. You drop your person off, you leave them by themselves, you look around for a parking spot, you carry your baby, whatever. I was there a couple of weeks ago with a godson, was there with his mother, and yeah. The only other outlet for this neighborhood area is University Avenue. The frontage road is an extra outlet for residents. When we try to exit onto University Avenue, we have to wait for the traffic several times a day. For the traffic that's coming east, we have to wait for a break in traffic. When we get that break in traffic because of the intersection light on University and Barton Road, then we have to worry about traffic coming from the east traveling west. So the frontage road helps us out. When the city closes Campus Street for different community events, we are stranded, i.e. runners racing, cycle races, parades, or whatever, a couple times a year. With the closure of the frontage road, please consider the closing of campus for these events. I am not aware of any traffic studies warranting the closure of the frontage road. Is there the possibility of neighborhood residents being able to make a right-hand turn only onto Barton Road from the frontage road, San Juan? That would help us some. Especially since an additional right-hand lane is being built at this time on campus, turning right onto Barton Road. Thank you very much for your consideration. I do believe I have valid concerns. We are a fairly large community. I have not counted the houses there. So anyway, but there are a lot of us concerned. Some people are afraid to come forward because they work for the medical center. They're afraid. Thank you.
Ms. Stumbaugh, we can't respond specifically to your concerns, but it sounds like you need to be invited to the Traffic Safety Committee for this consideration.
No, what happened is when we did close this street, which is part of the we opened up the Molnar Way, we did have a public hearing on this.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm saying that she has concerns about traffic flow with the resolution that we have proposed, and I think that's a traffic committee.
Yeah, but
at the same time, you were at a meeting, and I did talk about studies being done. I was told at a meeting, at a city council meeting, that would be done after the parking structure was built. So this is what I was told. And I don't understand, I honestly do not understand why we are dismissed in that residential area because we're not south of Barton Road. We're dismissed as not having needs as any normal residential area. It concerns us. It's a large area back there, and to have the only access to for exiting or entering is University Avenue, Violet Molnar Way. I don't see how that frontage road, I have not seen accidents there. I have not heard of accidents there. I'm not saying they haven't happened. I have not heard about them. And, if there's such a safety concern, why can't we, with an additional right-hand turn being built, and we can't use that road as access to exit?
there was a environmental study done as part of the 7-story parking structure.
The process.
At the end of I was told it would be done at the end of the parking structure after it was completed, because only then could you figure out what traffic was. Yes, look at your meetings. I'll go to the library and I'll point it out to you, and then what? But it's been, I've also talked here, and I have not had my minutes written down. I went on vacation, came back, looked at the minutes, and my comments were not listed.
Would you be available to come on a Thursday evening at 6 o'clock to a traffic safety committee and present your concerns? Because some of them, even if it continues with our current plan, you've got issues about inadequate access on the street and wanting to red curb one side of the street where the employees are parking, correct?
Yes.
So those issues need to be brought to the Traffic Safety Committee. I think that's at a bare minimum.
I thought that was tomorrow night.
I don't know when it is.
No, the next one will be the first Thursday of March. So,
Okay,
because last one was this past Thursday.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, on the same topic, apparently, is Christy Winter.
My name is Christy Winter. I live at 11146 San Mateo Drive, right next door to Joan. And I have exactly the same concerns. And I resent the fact that you are telling us that we didn't have this promise that they would do this traffic study after the parking structure. I was at that meeting too. Basically, you're telling us that we're lying. We're not. And I resent that. I also resent the fact that you have showed no consideration of the residents in our area whatsoever. You do not live there. I had someone in the city tell me, "Oh yes, I know all about it." He didn't live there. He said, "I visited a friend." Visiting a friend does not tell you what goes on in that neighborhood. I just came up San Lucas on my way here, and I was following a pickup truck. There was still so many cars parked on that street that if there had been a car coming from the other direction, the pickup truck and that car could not have passed each other on the street. Frankly, neither could I have passed another car. It's too narrow. The parking should be eliminated on the east side of that street. And we definitely need more. I've come down and tried to make a left turn into Violet Molnar when I'm coming home. Sometimes it's almost impossible. The traffic from the parking structure that makes a right turn to go south on campus is not restricted by the parking light. They can make a right turn on a red. We also have traffic coming out of the emergency room parking and traffic going in the other driveway, which means you can't get in the turn lane, and if you manage to get to a point where you possibly can turn, there's cars coming the other way, even if the traffic light at the crosswalk is red. It's impossible. And that is the only access that we have. We can't get out, we can't get in. We need the Barton Frontage Road, and we need the traffic restricted on San Lucas.
I know we're not supposed to interact, but can I ask a question?
Yes, you may, for clarification.
Okay.
Just for the public's benefit, the City Council cannot discuss or take any action on an item that's not on the agenda this evening, and that's why the mayor is somewhat limited in his response.
Okay.
Okay, for clarification, do you feel that the left turn onto the frontage road that you currently have to take, crossing all that same traffic, do you think that's adequate access currently? Because it's a bit
I don't
of a
think it's
problem.
adequate. What we needed, you took away Prospect. We could use at one time either one of those. Now, we only have one, and it is so restricted by all of the other driveways and traffic flow that it has become. I used to make left turns onto the frontage road. I was always very careful, like Joan. I have never seen an accident there. I've never heard of one.
But
It was possible.
I can say that I have driven south on Campus Street many times, and maybe one person in 10 respects that thing that says, leave the space.
I know that.
It's just horrible.
Oh, I know that quite well. But I didn't always come in at heavy traffic time, and many times it was very easy to get through there. If I had a problem, I would go down to Prospect and use the light.
But when it's low traffic, can you easily turn left on
Oh, yes.
Molnar?
Oh, yes. No, well, on Violet Molnar, not so much, because people are coming in and out of the ER. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's touch and go. How many?
Because there's two driveways, and one is, the exit is just ahead of Violet Molnar, or just north of it, and the entrance is just south of it. So one way or another, you get it.
Yeah. I would repeat my suggestion. You need to come with your facts and your information to the Traffic Safety Committee.
I'm not sure if I can because of my job. I'm a nursing instructor.
Can you write up your concerns and send them with your neighbor?
I will try to do that.
That would be excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if you think that's a dispute, here's our next topic. Bez Renhefo.
Hello, Honorable Mayor, Dr. Rigsby, and council members. My name is Bez Renhefo from representing Loma Linda Little League. I have been a board member for the last 4 or 5 years, and have had my kids go through it since they have been little kids. Now they're teenagers. I want to thank you, first of all, for allowing us to partner with the city for the last 18 years. It has been a privilege, and the children have enjoyed the snacks, the games, and especially the snacks at the end of the game when the team mom hands them out. Isn't that what's important? You know, friends, community, faith, and just some plain old fun. Recently, a decision has been rendered to give the new Pony organization exclusive rights to the field, and in the process bumping out Loma Linda Little League even after support and partnership over the last 18 years. Historically, Loma Linda Little League has shared the field with everybody because it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the city. And we're okay with that. We're okay that there's a new player in the field and that Pony is coming into Loma Linda, city of Loma Linda. We have no problem with that. We'd just like to share the field with them and everyone else that we've done over the last 18 years. So what I'm asking you today is to reconsider the decision that you have recently made to give them exclusive rights, because I believe it really won't be exclusive rights. You're still going to be sharing it with travel ball teams, high school teams, and the like. So we'd like to be treated fairly and equally, just like them. Thank you for your time.
Can the staff kind of update us on this? Because that's new to me.
Again, they're welcome to attend the next Park and Beautification Committee. The last one was just the last Monday and Tuesday night.
No, it was Monday. I thought it was Tuesday night, and I missed it.
Monday, yes.
Yeah.
And we have that special just for you, but you didn't attend.
Right. I thought I got it confused. I thought it was.
And so we'll be happy to ask you to come again at the next meeting. We'll be happy to listen to you.
Okay.
I just had two.
For point of clarification, this was not a decision by council. This was a decision
By
by
staff.
staff. And,
By Parks and Beautification.
okay. By another committee, though.
So I guess our committees are allowed to decide who uses public spaces exclusively?
Yeah, no, we have probably 5 different groups that use in the park, not just one group.
Okay.
Probably 5 or 6 different groups use
So
the park.
just make sure I'm
different days.
clear. Are they exclusively using it, or are they not exclusively using it?
Not exclusive.
Which means the Little League can still use it.
No, they're not. They're not in it right this year. But we have 5 or 6 other groups that use in the park.
Can I make a point of clarification, please? We have chartered a Loma Linda Little League for 2014, so we're ready to go. We would like you to reconsider to allow us to use it like we have the last 18 years. We don't want to be exclusive. We want to share. We wish Pony much success. Even if we have one team, we're okay with that. We don't have to be the biggest and the best.
It sounds to me like he's offering you another
Yes,
shot.
I'm willing to
So,
come, yeah. But one of the things I want to clarify, I have already put my park permit request, so it was denied.
Well, I would also like to clarify something. I believe that any of the subcommittees that make decisions can be appealed to the city council. But what you're bringing before us right now, we don't have any knowledge of.
Okay.
So, and I think that might have been.
We can't act even if we did.
Correct, because this is non-agendized. But
Yeah.
all I'm doing is giving you a little bit of advice, and anybody in the audience, if there's an issue with one of the subcommittees, that can always be brought higher in an appeals-like process. But even going back to the previous commentators, and I was just speaking with Councilman Daley about it. There are certain things that we didn't hear that were taken to Planning Commission and decisions made at Planning Commission that we make decisions based on those recommendations. So I would encourage everyone, if they have a standing issue, to approach council or try to get something on the council so we can actually have some working knowledge about these issues before they come up before us.
Okay, I'll go ahead and follow your recommendation.
Thanks. The next request is from Marino De Leon on the same topic.
Honorable Mayor Risby and member of the council, I've been resident of this part of this community for more than 20 years. I'm the founding president of Loma Linda Little League back in 1996. And I know that I've seen the histories of this city, and I have been advising the league on and off when there are issues. And this is kind of the third time I have come to, they asked me for advice. This league has had for the last 18 years more than 3,500 players. Super strong community support of hundreds of thousands of dollars that has been invested in the city, in the parks, because the name of Little League really, it's easy to raise funding with Little League. It's really easy. We started with zero money, and some, through this council support, gave some money for equipment also for the Little League and for the fields, and then we got some money from Little League too, that was as an investment, and then we raised that year's, a lot of money, and we can have a budget of close to $100,000 very easily in the league. Now, there was a rumor that the league was not going to be in operation because 2 or 3 people or a handful of persons that were previous part of the Little League decided to go a different direction for reasons that I still don't understand. Then, when I was, that decision was rendered by the Park and Recreation Committee, numerous people have come to me to talk to me from the community, because Little League has thousands of supporters in this community, and they come to me, and I did my investigation. And it looks like the major concern was about who is eligible to play in Little League. And who is eligible to play in Little League is a student that is attending a school at the city of Loma Linda or within the boundaries of the league. Is anybody that is a resident of the city of Loma Linda or within the boundaries of the league, or if you work at Loma Linda or in the boundaries of the league and you have children, also you can play a Little League. Then that covers most of the members of this community and also the extended community of this league. Let me tell you a fact. This league is one of the few leagues in the nation that have the games on Sundays. And that's because we requested to do that to Williamsport because of our special heritage. And we have been negotiating with the league during all this year at the national level. And because our insistence in doing this, even Little League has changed some of its rules at the national level to be more inclusive for issues of boundaries. Now, the current league that is planning to play here is not going to have basically boundaries. It's going to, the boundaries are mostly non-existent. And I question that because then the success of Little League at Loma Linda has been that you have created a league that identifies with the community because most of the people are from the extended community and this community. And number two, you have control here by the members of the city of Loma Linda. In a league where you have no boundaries and then anybody, for any reasons, can come and play here, and that could be problematic in terms of serving the needs of this community. Then what I came just to present my strong support for this proposal from Little League to continue to partner with the city, and number two, I'm going to continue advising this league this year and helping promoting and recruiting until we solve this problem with the community. I just wanted to mention that because I know that it is important. The goals, the objectives from Little League, when we discussed which league we were going to play back in the 90s, we thought that Little League rules and also emphasizing competition within team and loyalty and courage and service, that was key elements that connect with this community, and the sustainability of this league in this community is an example why that has to be seriously considered before just bringing this extension to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
When is our next Parks Committee?
It's the second Tuesday of March. Yeah, we
And when does the Little League start again?
End of March.
So, Jarb, would you recommend they appeal the decision to the city council before then, or wait till the committee?
Or can we have?
What happening is we have a special meeting just for you at the last, was it Monday or and what happening is we have this.
He didn't show.
Right, and the Loma Youth Little League, Loma Youth softball and baseball also have the same, very similar sign-up time, and so they're working with us and you to try to get the student or kid to sign up for the games, and I knew it was going to happen, but
My question is, from your perspective, do we have enough fields and enough slots to accommodate both leagues?
I don't know. I don't know how many field you need and how many students. For what I was told, you don't have enough student or kid to play on both leagues. So
I have a roster now of 300 people, kids that played, anywhere from 250 to 300 last year. If that remains constant, then Tony picks up some and we pick up some, then you'll still have the same amount of games. It's not going to.
See, I think that a lot of facts would have to come out in some kind of a hearing to know whether they can share it or whether we have such a small place that we have to either split the baby or kill one of the babies. I don't know.
Well, I think it's always been shared. So
no, last year. I'm sorry. Last year is the Youth Little League that used the field.
No. Loma Linda Little League used the field last year, and we've always shared it with anybody who wants to go get and it's not our call to share it. They go apply for a park permit.
Yes.
And they get either approved or denied.
Yeah, I think we can't argue it out tonight. Why don't we just put it on the agenda of the next council meeting as an appeal?
Yeah. Okay.
And then just get some facts? Because it sounds like the next Parks Committee is too late, to me.
Yeah.
Does that sound reasonable?
In the meantime, I suggest that you speak with the city manager, and maybe if there's something you can work out, then you guys can do that. If not, we'll go ahead and recommend that item be placed on the agenda, and we'll ask for a staff report on that. Again, because these are issues we don't have any knowledge of prior to this, and we can't comment on them anyway.
Yes, I'd be happy to call another park beautification committee meeting. I could do that too. So.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Good enough. Any other members of the public want to speak on any topic? Not on the agenda. Okay, no other takers, so we'll move on. We have item 1, presentation by Give Big San Bernardino County.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Carrillo. I am the chair of the East Valley Regional Subcommittee of Give Big San Bernardino County, and it is my hope that before my presentation is over tonight, you will have taken out your phones and calendared May 8th at 7 a.m., because that is going to be the inaugural kickoff of San Bernardino County's Give Big San Bernardino County campaign. Now, why is this campaign important, and why might you care about it? This is going to be a 24-hour online, web-based fundraiser for our local nonprofits. As you all know, San Bernardino County is one of the counties that has the most need. Unfortunately, we also get the least grant dollars and the least foundational dollars to our local nonprofits. Our county supervisors, in
Microphone, please.
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, our county supervisors, along with the Community Foundation, have come up with a potential solution for this problem by doing this fundraiser and getting our local nonprofits involved. And I am going to speed through a little presentation on it to give you more information. Give Big campaigns are happening all around the country. They've proven to be very successful with high dollars raised. Within the last 3 weeks, Seattle's Give Big version, which was 24 hours, raised $11.1 million for their nonprofits. Riverside, just next door, in their third year, raised $300,000 for their local nonprofits. And that was just in the 24-hour period based on donations that came in. During their first year, over the next year, they received an extra $100,000 more than they brought in on that actual day. That was just Riverside City and Corona. We're trying to do this at the county level, and while we have a very modest goal of 150 participating nonprofits and $300,000 raised, I'm hoping we can shatter that estimate. Why do we want to do this? We want to improve the sustainability of our nonprofits. We want to give them the opportunity to have their own donor base, to cultivate philanthropy within San Bernardino County, and to attract the next generation of donors. On our committee, we have high school and college outreach to try to get our youth involved, and we're reaching out into each of our communities through all of our sub-regional committees. Long-term stability is important because our nonprofits provide vital services to our communities. This is healthcare, educational, food, training for people who are underemployed or uneducated, and also medical needs. Nonprofits who have more sustainable donor bases will improve the quality of life for our residents. It's being implemented by the Community Foundation. We have a little chart somewhere a little bit later. I jumped ahead a little bit, but before I get into that, for the nonprofits to participate, they need to be a 501c3 in existence with their mission for a year from their designation. They need to be registered on the California Registry of Charitable Trusts, or they need to have at least applied and be able to show us that they've applied with them. They need to have completed their IRS Form 990 and pay $100. What they're going to receive for this is not only the ability to have a web page on our provider so that people can go to their web page, learn about what they do, what areas they serve, and of course donate to them, but they're going to get training on donor cultivation, what to do once you've had these donations come in, how to get people coming back and donating higher dollars to your organization. And they're also going to get training on social media, their presence with their website, their Facebook, their Twitter, LinkedIn, why that matters, and who they're missing by not doing that outreach. The Community Foundation is running this organization at this point, and they have a steering committee that's making the decisions, but the real work is being done by over 150 volunteers across the 5 regional subcommittees. Loma Linda is in the East Valley Regional Subcommittee, which is all the neighboring cities, and we have monthly meetings where people are getting involved in planning events. We already have some great events being planned next door in Redlands and San Bernardino, and it is my hope we can have some good events in Loma Linda, not only on the day of, but in the 6 weeks leading up to it when we really try to raise awareness. Again, modest goals that I'm hoping that we can beat. What I'm asking of you tonight is to help me with raising awareness in your community, reaching out to nonprofits that you're aware of or people that you know who are in the nonprofit circles, business leaders who may be able to share some of their expertise in marketing, media outreach, or sponsorship, and promoting the event among your friends and associates. Thank you for taking a moment to listen to this. My contact information is on the handouts that you got, so if you would like to reach out or send me people as a reference who would be interested in more information, please do. Are there any questions I can answer?
Who's on the list?
Of nonprofits that are participating? The application just started being accepted at the beginning of the month, and I think we already have 10 or 15 who have turned in their application with all their financial documents, but our list of participants who have said that they're going to apply is already over 100. And I'm happy to send you a list if you want to see actual names of nonprofits.
I would imagine we could probably see it on the website once it's up and running.
The website, the placeholder website, is going to be going live at the end of the month, and so you'll be able to see some of those lists there. The actual platform for people to donate isn't going to go live until 6 weeks before the event.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question as well. I'm trying to understand I believe in nonprofits and donations, and I believe in everything you've talked about. I'm trying to understand what the benefit of this is. If I have $1,000 that I want to give to a nonprofit, and I decide I'm going to give $500 to the Red Cross and $500 to United Way, why would I channel it through this fund instead of just giving it directly?
If you are already one of those people who's giving to Red Cross and United Way, that is wonderful, and we encourage you to keep doing so. This campaign is about reaching out to maybe your neighbor or a family member or a colleague of yours who doesn't already have a nonprofit that they're aware of that they give to, and it's kind of raising a sense of community and making donations fun with a one-day giving. How much can this county raise to support their nonprofits?
So this is an effort to increase that donor base, basically.
Absolutely. At the end of Give Big, all of the nonprofits who have participated are going to get a list from Razoo of the donors, their contact information, and how much they gave. And so they're going to be encouraged to keep in contact with these people and solidify relations and donations over the next year before, hopefully, what will become an annual event.
Does that mean my telephones are going to ring off the hook?
You will not be getting telephone information. It will just be a mailing address. So you may get spammed with mail if you donate, but no phone calls.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2, I believe there's a request to continue this.
Mr. Mayor, Council, actually, before we get to the request to continue, we'd like to give you a little bit of an update on what we've accomplished. We've worked with the property owner and his representative. We're scheduled to begin weed abatement on the 14th, so by Thursday afternoon, we should see some significant progress on the weed abatement. Property owner has a very specific list to work to, and then the fire marshal will review that abatement and get back to you. We're looking to continue to the February meeting, so we will have a thumbs up or thumbs down on the satisfactoriness of the weed abatement, with the assumption that the abatement goes according to plan. Then we would come back to you on May 1st with a plan to remediate the last of the structures that is still structurally unsound and dilapidated and falling underneath the nuisance. So at this point, we'd like to continue, but the property owner's representative would like to give you an update on what they've accomplished in this process and answer any questions you may have specifically of the property owner.
May I ask you a question first, Conrad?
By all means.
How is this different from what we approved a month ago?
You gave us a month to come up with an and over the Christmas vacation to come up with a time frame of when, what's going to happen, and to put something in place. And we have an appointment for Thursday morning to get the guy out there with the pitchforks and shovels and chainsaws or whatever it takes to begin that process.
I'm in a benevolent mood tonight, but I thought what we had agreed to is that this was going to get cleaned up and resolved before this meeting. So we can check the minutes. My recollection is probably not quite.
And maybe I was not clear enough on that. That's possible as well.
And my only issue is we keep pushing the ball down the road.
We will, like I said, the
As
pitchforks.
long as the road cleans the ball as we're pushing it.
The pitchforks and the shovels hit the ground on Thursday morning.
Pathway, though, so.
Anyway, the
Comment
Thanks.
from the representative, Mr. Kraus, Esquire.
Thank you, Council. It's nice to see you again. And without sounding sycophantic, I want to offer a sincere statement that it is a pleasure and a privilege to talk before this body, which represents what I think is really a fine example of civic government at work. And I mean that. I regard every one of you as dedicated public servants, and it shows in the way you conduct yourself and in negotiations with your staff. Now, having said that, since I got involved with this, by analogy, I've felt a little bit like a black widow, male black widow, in that I'm trying to make love to this entity that any moment could, I'm well aware, eat me. And as I look at the city symbol, I should probably regard that as fair warning, serving man on the plate. But with that, what we bring tonight is a firm commitment from my client. And that is not a small thing in the context of the history of this campaign. So it's really my duty to assure that in the actions taken in the next few minutes, there is an agreement for the continuance. And I want you to feel good about it as well, that we not exercise the nuclear option, which is the finding of a public nuisance, is huge. The other thing is, I hope the perception is that what we're doing in doing so is not just indulging some civic miscreant. I'll try to reframe what's been going on. First of all, my client has been in this city before Loma Linda was even a city. He's a fixture here. And in addition, he is a decorated war veteran. He was in special forces. Now, obviously, that doesn't change the legal facts of what we're doing with. But it's actually central to the message that I'm trying to convey about this relationship of the civic power to its citizens. My client is a warrior, and he sees the world through those eyes. And as we've come to learn, he's definitely a nonconformist. And in that role, he kind of has served as a lightning rod that helps illuminate this tension between the balance of the city and its powers and its relationships to its citizens and their individual freedoms. This is not a small thing. I mean, I'm seeing this in almost epic terms, and it's been quite interesting to delve into the law and see those balances. I also think that should kind of stir at the very heartstrings of this council, which has demonstrated its libertarian bent. So, in my duty of representing Mr. Levinsky zealously, I've had to probe for loopholes, any kind of portion of the law that would give an advantage in this discussion and negotiation with the city. And it's not my desire to go down that road. Far from it, and for a couple of reasons. First of all, I hate conflict, and I think that would be unproductive. Secondly, I don't have a whole lot of things to grab onto. But even beyond that, for tonight, what that does is it spares, if you think I'm talking on now, it would be a filibuster of huge proportions, as it would be my duty to read into the public record an entire body of hearing material such that it could go forward in a mandamus proceeding before the court that would depend on that record, this being my last shot. We've spared us that, all of us, by entertaining the idea of a continuance. Now, I do want to add quickly that the principles behind all this are actually, when you get into it, not as clear as you might think. Clearly, they do favor the city, but at the margins, there are some technical arguments that get into constitutional rights and what's the standard of review and when do you have to find that a public nuisance involves the whole community and when is it something that is just within the civic power to define. And it makes for interesting reading. Well, for some anyway, I enjoyed it. It's clear that ultimately the power lies with the city. So what I'm happy to say, what I bring you tonight is that Leland Lubinsky is tapped out, and we get to move forward. So what I'm asking is that as we move forward in this process, that we treat him with respect. I will expect him to do the same with this council. There will still be, I'm sure, at the margins, room for some contention and disagreements, but they have no force. And as we move forward, it's really a matter of timing and how the city chooses to exercise its forbearance at the same time it exercises its power. So if he doesn't, well, there is no if, but should it, well, never mind, we won't go there. We will bring you on May 8th a definite and certain plan for the remediation of that building. And there's other activity which will start to take place. I must correct Conrad, it's the 16th, not the 14th. But that's okay, 2 days. 2 more days. Will you accord us 2 more days? Anyway, thank you very much for your consideration of this. Appreciate it. And if you have questions for me, I'm happy to answer them or attempt to.
Go ahead.
Sir, you are eloquent and entertaining.
Yep,
and I give you high marks on both fronts. Anyone who can describe our effort to clean up weeds in epic terms of asking us not to use a nuclear option stretches my imagination, but it is entertaining. But ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, is clean up a bunch of weeds and an array of toys that are on full display for everyone that gets off the freeway on our elegant new Tippecanoe off-ramp. And as long as we make progress on this, I'm willing to extend our goodwill.
Anderson off-ramp.
Anderson, okay, thank you.
Okay.
But I appreciate and take you at your word that the message is getting through and that we can begin to make some headway on this. Because this is an impressive history when you read the whole thing.
I found it impressive too. Yes.
And we just assume not. We'd like to have a happy ending to this.
Sure, but Councilman Daley, may I address perception as part of this, and there regarding the freeway off-ramp. Leland is committed to a green screen. He's actually really in favor of it. He's taken it on himself to do some plannings. It was not at his behest that Caltrans cut down a lot of vegetation and trees that made some of the stored inventory on his property more visible. Now, there does remain an agreement in place that gives Leland rights that he would not perhaps otherwise have under the basic nuisance codes of the city. And what I've seen so far is that with the same zeal and courtesy that you extended to the McDonald's Corporation about agreements that you had entered into with them, there was a hesitation to step away from agreements that had been made with Leland about that. So I'm just talking about the fact that there are still some stored materials that you and I may not choose to have in our yard. I also see movement in that direction. I think there is a gradual attempt. There is. He doesn't want to live with all those indefinitely, and there's certainly no movement of those materials onto the property.
So let's focus on the positive and
yes,
not get into the other stuff.
You bet. Yes, sir.
And the fact that I'm talking about the Anderson off-ramp, his property just happens to be there. The principle would be the same regardless of where it was in Loma Linda.
Sure.
But thank you for your effort to help achieve a resolution on this.
Sure, thank you. And he would love help on building that screen in the back, too, and he helped the city.
If we wrap this up too soon, then we wouldn't be able to continue our ongoing dialogue on philosophy. So,
yes, sir. Thank you very much.
My understanding was you were going to give us an update on progress made, but I'm a little perplexed as to what progress has been made since November. Am I missing something? Are we, since November, just talking about putting in a plan, or are we actually doing something to clean up some of the issues?
The biggest issue, at least in terms of economic import tonight, was this resolution about remediating a structure that's been in that condition for a long time. That was not first and foremost on the radar screen. Okay,
but as far as the other issues, have we made progress on cleaning up the yard?
Well, yes, actually, well,
If you don't mind, I'll...
we'll go through the whole, I mean, I think the key thing is that he has hired Mowbray, a professional landscape company that is the same one that the city uses to do similar work. They're coming out on a date certain. He's provided them with funds to do it, and that's huge. He's also moved something. I mean, it's hard to say exactly. I guess I would have to refer to the specific details.
The specific list, and if you look at, I'll hit the progress list then. If you look at the complaint, there's a long laundry list of substandard structures, unregistered vehicles, electrical issues. For all intents and purposes, the unpermitted electrical work, he has gotten permits and cleared. The structural damage on the far west building has been repaired and fixed. That building has been stabilized. We've resolved the issue regarding unregistered vehicles. We've resolved the issues regarding kind of daisy chaining the buildings together with electrical cords. So we really have resolved all this long laundry list of stuff down to the vegetation issues and what's the central building, what everybody's calling the upholstery shop. And the big sticking point was the upholstery shop, because that's going to cost either some money to repair and stabilize or take a real emotional commitment to take that thing down to the ground, whichever way that's going to be. And I think we've checked off everything other than these two things on the list.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay. So what action do we need to take to continue this?
The motion would be to continue to the date recommended, which was, February 11th.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Okay. Do I have to state who made the motion in a second, or can you read? Okay. The clerk has that. Then we will, is there any other discussion on it? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimous. Thank you. And we have just continued the appeal of Planning Commission to the next meeting.
I want you to say more.
Oh, that was it. I have to state what we just did. Okay, next, the long-awaited public hearing on Loma Linda University Health Master Plan. Community Development, please. Oh, yes, we have conflicts of interest on this. We have to draw straws because 4 of us are employed by Loma Linda University Health in some capacity or another.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you have stated, 4 of the council members have previously declared conflicts based upon employment or source of income, and our practice has been to draw straws. 2 of the straws are marked vote, meaning vote and participate in the discussion. So I will, this evening, I think I'll start at this end, as I think I started down there last time.
How long? Oh, so it's how long?
2 left. Just fight over. Okay.
What is this?
You participate. That is, you do not participate.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. This happened last time.
The one with the whitest hair.
It doesn't sound very democratic, but I guess we'll roll with it.
So Mayor Rigsby and Councilman Popescu are disqualified. The remaining 3 council members will act on all matters pertaining to this project going forward, as long as this council remains with the current membership.
Okay, I believe there's a presentation then.
Okay, Council Bill R 2014-03, this is certifying the final environmental impact report based on the findings, subject to mitigation measures, and CEQA for the adoption of the Campus Master Plan project. What this is not an approval of any buildings, any construction, any action. This is a review. That's twice already. Excuse me. This is a review of the environmental impact study and the council accepting that study and the mitigation measures as put before you. One other, you want to talk about Edison now? Should I hit that now? We did have one comment on the review process from Southern California Edison, that they did not want us to be able to place conditions of approval upon the potential power station. We have heard their request. And
help me understand that.
So typically when something's built, there's conditions of approval placed upon the project that anything from the type of windows used to hours of operation to methods or procedures during construction. California Public Utilities Commission prohibits us placing conditions upon power generation or transmission facilities based upon their, and stop me if I'm wrong, you guys, based upon their operation. We can, however, place conditions upon them during the construction phase, that they have to do construction during certain hours, mitigate water runoff, dust, noise, those type of things. So we have heard their request that we not place any conditions upon them and are taking that under advisement. And we will, of course, comply with the California state law and the Public Utilities Commission as to law and implementation of that. So we're going to do this in 2 parts. First, we have a representative from LUASC and the university and the medical center to give a presentation on actually what is going to happen in a timeline, and then we'll have the representative from Lilburn, the environmental consultant, get into the nuts and bolts about the environmental process. Are you ready, Nate?
Yeah. Am I going to have to find my way through the presentation here? This is your presentation, Judge Kutzer.
Could you introduce yourself, please, for the record?
Sorry. My name is Nate Lensink. I'm with JTech Healthcare Construction Management, and I have been working with Loma Linda University Medical Center and LUASC to develop the campus transformation project, and working with the city and staff from Loma Linda to produce this EIR and work with you guys through the CEQA process. So this is just a general overview of the contents, really, and the projects contained within the campus transformation project and the master plan for the next 10 years of the facility. And the generation of this project and this master plan is, the main driver is really California's Senate Bill 1953, which is a seismic mandate for all of California's hospital facilities. What this mainly affects is the 1967 portion of the current hospital facility. And the program we are developing with the users and the operations is to replace that essential services within that building which is really a portion of the current hospital operations. In working with the university side, there are a number of campus facilities and infrastructures that also have to be upgraded to maintain that new facility. That's the modernization of some structures, but also some new facilities with a central plant and the what Conrad had mentioned before, the connection to Southern California Edison for additional power resources. Also, working with the city, we are working to comprehensively review all the proposed developments over the next 10 years. This is realizing that the impacts of this project and really all of campus operations are a real big impact to the city. This is a program EIR that will try to encompass all of the projected impacts for the next 10 years and into one EIR. And then obviously we are still going to be maintaining our coordination with you guys as we develop these plans in greater detail and work with planning to review design packages and construction documents. A quick project summary. The proposed facilities, there's a number of structures that we have to design and construct and phase in order for this project to be successful. The first one is a 7-story, 760-space parking structure that will replace all of the existing visitor facilities, which is where the new tower project is anticipated to land. Is this better? The next piece is really the 13-story, approximately 732,000 square foot replacement hospital facility that will include 464 beds, of which the existing beds in the existing non-compliant structure will be out of commission. Next is the central plant upgrades, about 34,000 square feet of new or upgraded. There's still an option in this EIR that has to do with how we are going to address power and other utility requirements coming to the new building and the campus in general. And then the 14,000 square foot Southern California Edison new substation, which we will be tying back into the existing electrical infrastructure of the campus. 2-story, there's some other additional pieces in here from the university side that we also need to consider as we're developing all of the site plans, and that it is a 9,000 addition to the new dental school, a 4-story, 90,000 square foot research building that'll be going down campus, and then the reuse of the existing hospital and obviously utility and infrastructure improvements on really all the streets surrounding the existing campus. This is just a quick little outline and plan about where these projects are. Does laser work? Yeah. Oops. No. There. Escape. Okay, there we go. So project is, the program EIR and all the project construction are based into 2 general phases. The first phase is really the, that's not the right. The first phase is the parking structure with the hospital and the substation and the utility plant. This is really the main infrastructure that are needed for the new hospital development, and I'll go over the phasing of that on campus in the next slide. Phase 2 is really the pieces that are anticipated to happen towards the end of the projected timeline in the next decade, and that's the research building, the dental school, and the existing hospital reuse of those facilities once we vacate it to occupy the new building. So general phasing, in the next year, we are going to be developing plans, assuming we approve this EIR, that will encompass the new parking structure over there on the corner of Campus and Barton. And we, in this time, will also be developing plans to accommodate the existing entrance during construction and all the modifications that will be needed to start the construction in 2016, which will encompass most of the area in blue there in that second diagram. And that will be the real major impact and construction area for the new towers. In 2019, midway through the year, we are anticipating opening this building and all the site improvement and developments and new main entrance that go along with it. I'll go over the access requirements for the site in a future slide. Parking impacts, obviously this is a large concern. We are a little bit assisted by the opening of the new employee parking structure, which has turned on about 12,000 new spaces online. Like I mentioned before, the first project here is to deal with the visitor parking requirements and building that new structure to alleviate that and also add a little bit of capacity for the visitor parking. But right now, as it stands, we have an ongoing monitoring agreement with the city that says every Wednesday we count cars and make sure that there's really a surplus or where parking spaces are needed, and you can see the little diagram over there. Those are all the parking spaces and lots that we have currently in operation and are monitored weekly.
Is that in our handout at all? Because your slides don't follow the handout I have, and I can't read what you have up here. We don't have that as a slide, and I can't read what it says, so it's not helpful.
Conrad, do you have the parking slide? This should have been in any standard package. We've always maintained this slide.
And so if we don't have it, we don't have it. We can move on for now. But we would like.
Actually, you're saying you can't read the writing there on the right-hand side of the screen?
Correct.
That's just a sample of what one of those weekly parking sheets would look like.
Okay, we didn't use these two.
Yeah, I can get you a blow-up.
Okay, well, our slides are in a different order.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we might have abbreviated this just for general overview. But in this parking, the campus modifications for parking, you can see here in 2014, with the opening of this, the new structure, the new employee structure on the corner of Molnar campus, we should be at a count of about 89 to almost 9,000 spaces. And then once the final plans are developed in 2020, we will be at about 9,300 spaces. And that should pick up most of the demand for the new hospital building and all of the on-site medical uses within that campus block.
And if I can ask a question, 9,300 spaces, what's your projection of what all these new facilities are going to require in parking for employees and patients? Is 93 the right number, or are we still short, or we have excess? Where are we at?
Right now, if you go into the employee lot, there is in excess of about 400 spaces. And I can get you the most recent parking surveys in there. We have a current parking surplus right now. One of the questions I think we're attempting to deal with as we develop plans for the visitor parking structure, which we are in design right now, is what is the really count and need for the hospital's visitors lot. And we're going to be adding about 100 spaces to the current count in that facility, and then we'll be also adding some site parking around the new building. So 9,300 should be a count that is good for the foreseeable future through these plans. As we develop additional master plans, the nice thing about this master plan is it really opens up the front of the new house for other opportunities for parking between here and the dental building.
So the blue boxes in these two pictures, those represent new parking?
Yes, and this is the new parking structure off campus and Barton. These are site spots around the new main entrance of the hospital, assuming it form is just about in this general shape with a new entrance drive. These guys I can see being dedicated for valet and ED at the front of the lot to give us better visibility for visitors here who want to drop off and leave their car with attendees. This side lot right here is the new emergency parking lot, which will probably be a dual-level parking structure, which will have its own entrance off of Star Street, and that'll have about 80 or 90 spaces dedicated just for ED parking to alleviate some of the current parking constraints with the ED.
And if we follow west of that in the corner, that's for patient or employee parking, the larger structure?
This one?
Yes.
This will be dedicated to visitors.
Visitors, okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, once we start construction of the new tower project, they will have to go somewhere, so we need to build this first.
Okay.
Yeah. And that'll add capacity to the current visitor lot, and we're doing a study right now to determine is the 550, 600 spots we have out front adequate. We're going to be adding a 760 square space parking structure right now. That should be enough based on current assumptions, but we want to test the data with it right now. So we're in a test right now to finish that by the end of the month.
So we're building the new parking lot there in anticipation of having parking while you build the new ER. Where's ER parking go
ER will still keep parking right here. This is just going to be restricted to this corner piece right here. So ER access will be still through the existing spot right there.
Where is there green space in all of this? Looking at just the medical, not the university, just the medical center structures.
We are pretty much giving the entire front of the house here. I mean, obviously, depending on how we design the site, and we will come back to you with all the options that we're going to be entailing for those kinds of planning decisions. But the front of the house really here is maybe about 50% occupied. We are anticipating to add green space in the total count of what we have now, considering that we're consolidating a lot of the parking in a parking structure that should free up some of the space, depending on how we lay out the new tower footprint. Really, we only have a certain amount of square foot we can go up there, but we have to consolidate that building structure a little bit. So we anticipate adding green space. All of our reports in the EIR having to do with groundwater management assume that there's a bit of an add to the green space currently.
I mean, I realize you have a limited footprint that you're working with. At the same time, green space is something we've been sensitive about in the city for a long time. So it would be nice if we can have some kind of landscaping built in there so it's not a concrete jungle.
Mm-hmm. And I think there, we will probably discuss plans for master planning, and the nice thing about the current layout of the buildings and structures is that it gives the opportunity to do advancement in the beginning, in the future, towards the back end of the house and then where the current central plant is. There could be the ability, if we can consolidate some parking, maybe in the ED spots, to really add some real green space and really connect to future corridors of development for the downtown.
Okay. Thank you.
Landscaping. We are going to be, obviously the plans are a little early in the phase right now to talk about detailed landscaping plans, but we have the 2008 Grew & Associates master plan, and we will be adhering to the planning features and plant selections and tree selections outlined there. Obviously, any changes or modifications we make, we will bring to the council for review prior to submission. Site access, this is probably one of the bigger changes to the site. Let me just run through some of the impacts right now. The new visitor parking structure will need access off of Campus Street. We are requesting also an entrance off of Barton Street to allow for some planning flexibility for that new visitor structure. For the new tower, we are looking for access across Barton and into Barton to the back of the house. That will be serving ED functions and a new loading dock, which will be needed to make the dietary and new kitchen requirements. Number 4 here is really a new entrance at Star and Anderson, and that'll allow for the access to the new ED parking structure and facilities, and then the ED side of it. And then number 5 is really probably the first one to happen, and that's going to be the new entrance and then access to the main entrance off of Prospect. And this will hopefully consolidate a little bit of the entrances going into the medical center campus with the existing streets.
I'm sorry, can you go back one? The Prospect entrance, number 5, as you come down that, what those look like existing buildings on the north side, and is that all? But some of where you have little boxes, there are buildings as well. Is that going to be parking, or we don't know what we're going to do with that? We're just going to tear some buildings down?
Right now, as our plan sits, we're still developing the options for the front of the house. We're just now beginning to work with the architect to kind of finalize the footprint, and we really know what the impacts and the access requirements of the new building will be. So a lot of the site planning will be based off of that. But it's anticipated right now that we need most of this area of development for the new tower project. You can't just build right within the footprint of the building. So we will need to take some additional, probably have a temp entrance at the existing outpatient space right here, and then the impacts needed to make this drive and the new entrance will probably require us to demolish and probably provide parking or some kind of alleviation at this area. In the end, we assume that this will be parking for visitors or possibly landscaping.
And obviously that would be true across on the south side of Prospect
exactly.
as well. Okay.
And again, this count is just general to make up that 930 number, and we can probably have a number of ways to really line that up and landscape it and park it.
Access for the parking structure, number 1, is that number 3 serve both the tower and the parking
Number 2 would be the access point, and again, we're still kind of devising the impacts of this. Obviously, Barton is a pretty high-traffic road, and we want to make sure we're not impacting traffic going through, but also to make sure we have enough queue space that use of that parking structure is efficient. 3 would really be dedicated access, and this back of house would be restricted probably to ambulance. What we think of at this point, we won't really know these answers until we get through kind of final concept design and real final programming, but we want to reserve the flexibility for our designers to be able to use an access here to allow for quicker ED and ambulance access. And there will probably be access required for some loading, some limited loading for dietary needs and the kitchen. But it would be limited access. So number 2 would be dedicated for visitors and parking, and number 3 would be dedicated to ED, loading dock, those kinds of things.
You know, just a comment, and it may be my limited understanding, but I still don't see where all the additional parking is coming. I mean, I know there's going to be on the southwest corner in the back here, that'll be a structure. I understand that. But where we're getting all the additional parking based on that diagram is not clear to me.
Well, like we said, we are at about almost 9,000 square feet, 9,000
spaces.
spaces.
For patient park, I thought that was employee parking.
This will be employee, and right now this new structure will add additional visitor capacity.
How many stories are you projecting that?
I believe our EIR has it listed as 7. And we're still going through the studies right now to confirm that, and we'll be making a presentation to planning shortly once we, number one, pass this process in the EIR, but also finalize this internally and the concepts and the visual design. Any other questions? Should I move on?
You can move ahead. Thank you.
The next one is really the traffic impacts based on our conversations last time. We just wanted to include a slide noting that to allow for this access into this, what is kind of a back-of-house parking zone is the widening that is currently underway on Campus Street. And also in plan check right now is the pedestrian bridge that will link the second story of the new, well, I guess it's the what we're calling parking structure number 1, but the parking structure just recently completed. That'll allow for some safe pedestrian travel. And also on Stewart Street, where we're currently widening, there's also the plan for the bridge to go over this to, again, ease some of the pedestrian traffic and allow for a better traffic flow around the campus.
And what's the timetable on the campus pedestrian bridge?
Conrad, can you answer that?
It's in plan check now, so the assumption is we should get permits and construction early summer, and then whatever construction timetable, probably end of the year, later, June. June of 14 is when they'll start working on that thing.
Assuming no modifications? A little longer?
Oh, so he's telling me they're going to be done in June of 14.
Wow.
So they got a good hurry up on for that.
Yeah, works for me. Keep going.
Oh, that's the end of my presentation. Any other questions before I hand it off to Lilliburn? No. Thank you.
I have questions, but I'm confused on what I can ask and can't ask at this point, so.
Dr. Lenard, we build the bridges for you, just to let you know.
Everyone else is still going to cross the street, but you can cross on the bridge.
Any other questions from Councilman Duper, Councilman Lenart? So help me understand. We have another presentation.
Actually, Nate gave you the overview of what's kind of going on.
Okay.
And Natalie is going to get into the nuts and bolts of the environmental component of this, not necessarily what's built where or the phasing of it. And as we looked at the environmental, we looked at this as an umbrella environmental for the entire site.
And do we have the slides for these hard copy?
Yes. You should have the second packet.
Second packet.
Or as part, is the back end of that big packet you have. It'll look like this.
Okay. Is it in here? Because I went through this thing. Okay, thank you.
And once again, to clarify, this is an environmental only. We're not approving building any buildings or any designs. We're looking at the impacts of that campus-wide. However, this is, upon acceptance of the environmental, as each component is done, there will not be subsequent environmental impact studies. This is the one blanket to do the
You're looking at me when you say all of this.
I'm looking that direction.
Trying to keep boundaries on.
Councilman Lenart's got his head down and hiding from me, so I can't look at him.
Go ahead and proceed. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council members.
Again, if you can introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Natalie Patty, and I reside at 11809 La Costa Court in Yucaipa, California. And, hey. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview. Well, we'll see. Hopefully it'll be brief. Of why the EIR was prepared, and just give you a little bit of impacts that were reviewed, and just a general overview. So why was an EIR prepared? The city decided to prepare an EIR based on the potential for the project to significantly impact environmental impacts, particularly in exceeding air quality standards. The timeline for this, of course, as Nate had pointed out, was that the applicant needs to comply with California's SB 1953 Hospital Seismic Act, which requires the replacement of the portion of the main hospital. It is anticipated that the master plan will be built out in 2 phases over a 10-year period. SB 90 was an amendment to SB 1953, which allows the 7-year seismic compliance extension to the year 2020 for the 1967 portion of the hospital. The focus of the EIR was mainly to focus on new construction and redevelopment within the existing Loma Linda campus, and also at the existing Elmer Dignio City Park. The EIR focused on the fact that the park and the campus are already developed, so such items as biological resources, mineral resources, and public services were not going to be affected. The EIR did, however, focus on 10 major environmental categories, including aesthetics, air quality, cultural resources, greenhouse gases, geology and soils, hazardous materials, hydrology and water quality, land use and planning, noise, and utilities. Both project-specific and cumulative impacts were also evaluated. A summary of the analysis. With the exception of impacts to greenhouse gases, all other impacts associated with the project would be reduced to a less than significant level after mitigation. Impacts from greenhouse gas emissions are associated with the new cogeneration plant portion of the utility plant, and these would remain significant and unavoidable even after implementation of mitigation measures and compliance with city standard requirements. So I'm just going to give kind of a brief overview of the 10 different categories that we looked at here. First off, we looked at aesthetics, and the project would remove a number of trees to allow for the new hospital building. These include the Baby Fay holly oak tree and the Aquinas citrus grove. However, with appropriate mitigation, all potential impacts would be reduced to a less than significant level. The Southern California Edison Option 1 would result in a new substation located at the Elmer Dignio City Park. Mitigation is required to ensure that the new structure would blend with the existing structure, namely the restroom building on site. The master plan would result in new light and glare sources. Appropriate mitigation would be required to reduce these levels to less than significant. For air quality, Emissions generated by the project would be from short-term construction of new and renovated facilities, and the operational emissions would be from utility plant. The construction of the new utility plant and the upgrade or the upgrade of the existing plant would result in the same level of operational emissions. And it should be noted that none of the emissions exceeded any of the thresholds. For cultural resources, the entire project, including the park, were evaluated for potential cultural resources. The analysis included the historic evaluation of residential structures to be demolished, and I believe when Nate was getting his presentation, where a lot of the buildings were being taken out and different areas were being overlaid, those are the 10 structures in question. The university owns those, and none were found to be significant with the demolition of those. And let's see, mitigation measures have been included to reduce potential impacts associated with the possible demolition of Risley Hall and or the housekeeping building on site. Our next category is hazardous and hazardous materials. The project site is not located within the San Bernardino International Airport influence area, nor does it occur within a wildland fire hazard area. The project was found not to impair implementation of or physically interfere with the city's emergency response or evacuation plan, and no significant impacts to adjacent schools would result. Demolition and remodeling of buildings, however, could potentially result in asbestos and lead exposure. However, with appropriate mitigation, requiring the preparation of an asbestos survey and lead inspection report, these potential impacts would be reduced to less than significant. For hydrology and water quality, the project would meet future water demand supplies. The project would be designed to include impervious surface greater than or equal to the existing condition to maintain consistency with pre-development conditions. The runoff from the proposed development would also be conveyed to both public and private on-site storm drain facilities consistent with the existing conditions. For geology and soils, seismically induced settlement would be mitigated to less than significant. And in the event that the Southern California Edison Option 1 is constructed and new impervious surfaces are created at the park, mitigation would also ensure that erosion potential would be reduced to then less than significant. For greenhouse gases, it was found that significant impacts would result from operation of the new cogeneration plant. This is from CO2 gases, which could be mitigated but not reduced to a level less than significant. This impact would remain significant and unavoidable. The existing plant was also evaluated and was also found to exceed greenhouse gas emissions. The new plant would be less than the old plant.
Hi, I'm Frank Amendola with Lilburn Corporation, and I live at the office. No, just kidding. No, the greenhouse gas emissions for the new plant would exceed because we're going from a 10 megawatt to a 22. Yeah, so it's incremental increase.
We're going from what to what?
A 10 megawatt to a 22 megawatt. That's the total build out after 10 years. That's what they're proposing to go to.
So that's more than doubling the output.
Correct.
Does that mean it's a double in the size of the plant as well?
Well, the plant's more efficient, so the criteria pollutants have actually gone down. The existing plant exceeds now. But the criteria pollutants, NOx, your PM10, PM2.5, significantly reduced. But, you know, the greenhouse gases regarding CO has increased.
So help me understand in layman's terms. What are we saying about the greenhouse gases would exceed? What is it they're exceed? What
well, the South Coast threshold is 3,000 for non-industrial projects, which is very low. And I think we're going to be at like 48,000. But put that in respect, the existing plant's at like $23,000. So, and it's an older plant, so this one's more efficient. And at the time when they actually pull permits through South Coast to review it, there could be more fuel efficient plants. South Coast they reviewed the EIR and comment on it, and the only comments they had were to add additional mitigation measures, which were added. So at the time the permit is, when they have to, Rule 201, they have to obtain a permit to construct, and South Coast will go through the process with them on their new plan and what measures they would need to comply with at that time.
So it's already gone to them for approval?
The EIR
Yeah.
and the air quality report have been sent for their review, and we did get a comment letter, and we did respond. And like I said, the only one that pertains to greenhouse gas were the addition of, I think it was 4 or 5 additional greenhouse gas measures, which we added to the final EIR.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
To land use, the master plan's proposed facilities and improvements are consistent with the city's general plan, land use, and zoning designations, and the policies and guidelines within the general plan. Development of the Southern California Edison substation at option 1 would require the city to issue a conditional use permit prior to development of the new substation within special planning area B at the city park, and no significant impacts were found for that. For noise, no significant noise impacts would result from construction and operation of the new parking structure, utility plant option 2, and Southern California Edison substations 1 or 2. Substation options 1 or 2. Mitigation included the use of sound barriers and limiting the hours of construction, would reduce noise impacts during construction of the new hospital and utility plant option 1. Noise generated by the use of helicopters on an emergency flight basis does not constitute a significant impact. They'd be continuing to have helicopters during and at operation, post-construction. Construction of the new hospital would require excavation of soils to construct subterranean levels. Potential generation of ground-borne noise and or vibration would be mitigated to a less than significant level. For traffic, as stated in the city's general plan, Chapter 2A, development projects that further the preliminary institutional purposes of Loma Linda University Adventist Health Sciences Center are exempt from the traffic level of services requirements. However, a traffic impact analysis was prepared for the project and concluded that the intersections serving the project site at build-out would operate at a level of C for both the morning and evening peak hour, and no increase in traffic would result due to the decrease in overall beds from 719 to 650. Next, we're on to utilities. The proposed project is not expected to result in hydraulic impacts to the existing City of Loma Linda's storm drain facilities, as estimated redevelopment flows and volumes are less than or equal to pre-developed conditions. There would be no potential significant impacts to existing water supplies or distribution systems resulting from the proposed project, and mitigation would ensure the generation and disposal of construction debris would be reduced to a less than significant level. Alternatives to the proposed project.
May I ask a question? I apologize for interrupting. I'm trying to get a handle on the traffic.
Okay.
If I understood you correctly, because there will be fewer beds in the hospital, there will be less traffic, and you'll be able to control congestion so that it's no worse than we experience now. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, we reviewed traffic in the sense that there would be no, in general, increase, and proposed new development would be to simply provide existing staff and students with additional facilities. If you have specific questions, Carl Ballard of Kunzman and Associates is here. He prepared the traffic impact analysis.
My other question, I think, is a simple one, and that is, if I understand the sequence of the project, the new patient parking structure will be going up before the major construction of the medical center and so forth. Is
That's
that correct?
correct. It's one of the first.
So that'll rechannel a lot of the parking into that structure.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions of Councilman at this point? Okay, go ahead and proceed.
Okay. SEQA requires the consideration and discussion of alternatives to the project. The guidelines state that an EIR shall describe a range of reasonable alternatives to the project, which would feasibly obtain most of the basic objectives of the project, but avoid or substantially lessen any of the significant effects of the project. CEQA also requires that an alternative evaluation includes sufficient information about each alternative to allow meaningful evaluation, analysis, and comparison of the proposed project. The guidelines also require that an environmentally superior alternative be selected. The reduced scale alternative was determined to be environmentally superior to the proposed project. The reduced scale alternative involves eliminating the 90,000 square foot research building, the 9,000 square foot dental school addition, utility plant options 1 or 2, and Southern California Edison substation 1 or 2. However, although it's environmentally superior, the reduced scale alternative does not fulfill all of the objectives as compared to the proposed project. Therefore, though the reduced scale alternative is environmentally superior, it is not being considered for development. Cumulative impacts. The EIR includes a discussion of cumulative impacts of the proposed project in conjunction with the city's general plan build-out. The analysis determined that the proposed project would result in a cumulatively significant impact for greenhouse gases only. So, statement of overriding considerations. In accordance with CEQA guidelines 15093 and 15043, the city has balanced the economic, legal, social, technological, and other benefits of the project against its unavoidable environmental risk, and has determined that the unavoidable adverse impacts for greenhouse gases may be considered acceptable due to the benefits which outweigh the unavoidable adverse impacts from greenhouse gases. Each of the separate benefits listed above here are determined to be a basis for overriding all unavoidable adverse environmental impacts for greenhouse gases. Each benefit constitutes an overriding consideration warranting approval of the project independent of other benefits, despite the unavoidable impacts resulting from project-related greenhouse gases. These benefits include the project's ability to comply with California's SB 1953 Hospital Seismic Safety Act and provide a safe health care facility, continue to maintain the hospital's current licensing compliance, and provide health care on a regional basis, provide an attractively designed master plan campus that would be an amenity for the area and surrounding community, provide necessary parking needed to meet the demands of visitors, patients, physicians, students, and staff, continue to provide a safe and modern university for students by providing upgrades and creation of new facilities, expand the city's economic base with medical support facilities, research facilities, and professional offices, continue to maintain the image of the city as a university town, where education, health, and medical services and recreation are important. Upgrade the campus's infrastructure systems by providing new and improved services and facilities. Provide a more self-reliant utility source in the event of an emergency. And lastly, improve the site access and safety along Barton Road, Campus Street, and Anderson Street. This concludes our presentation of the program EIR. If you have any questions on air quality or greenhouse gases, Frank Amendola is here with Lilburn, and also available is Carl Ballard with Koonsman and Associates to answer any questions you may have on traffic. Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Very nice report. I appreciate it. You summarized it very
I took a 2-volume and turned it into 10 minutes. So.
And I appreciate that. We really do. Councilman Duper, Councilman Lenart, any questions or comments?
I just had a question. It's not really directly related to the EIR, but the SB 1953, is that what it is?
Yes.
So the original building, and over we've heard this, we heard this before, and then we're hearing it again tonight, that the original building with the columns will be repurposed. How is that, I mean, how can it still be utilized, is my question, because all these other buildings, the other 10 you're talking about having to take down, I guess I'm not understanding why that building's going to stay up. If we have to be in 100% compliance, why doesn't that come
I know
down?
Nate's behind me, but I do know the answer to this as well. But it's because it's not going to be used as a physical hospital. It's anticipated that it's going to be providing office space or other, what?
Not acute services.
Not acute services for patient care. So if you're a patient, you wouldn't be allowed to actually, under law, under the Senate bill, be allowed to stay the night or have any facilities provided for you within that building.
To clarify that, a place where there's patients that are immobile, incapacitated, has a higher standard as far as
For earthquake
stability,
safety.
because you can't get up and run out of the building versus...
But you could still run labs and all that other
You
kind
can
of
still run lab, you can still go outpatient, and people that can get up and, from the doctor's office and get out of the building. So we're just downgrading the severity. And at this point, what we've got from the medical center and the university is, looking into the crystal ball of the future of what really the needs will be, is about 1/3 outpatient services, 1/3...
Conrad, just to interrupt you for a second there,
Go ahead.
it'll be roughly about half medical or clinical and half probably repurposed for educational use.
All right, that's the newest update.
Well, I can already see some of the commentary is going to be, that's the iconic picture of the city, and I guess the question is, down the road, is there any, you probably can't answer that, but any future plans to replace that building as well?
Yeah, I wish I knew a little bit more detail about what would happen with that existing facility, but right now it's a little too early to give any real assessment of that. We're still evaluating it seismically and repurposing, and then the architects are evaluating what the impacts are of seismically separating that building and the reuse possibilities of it. So we will keep the council informed as to our developments.
Okay. If there are any other questions? If there are no other questions, thank you so much for your presentations. They were very well done, very well organized. We appreciate it very much. And although I've been muzzled on asking any questions about the utility plant and electrical substation, I'll just say I have an acute interest, and we'll continue that conversation when it's appropriate. Mr. City Attorney, how do we proceed on this? We have, is this all handled with one vote under PPD 13018, or how do we proceed?
Well, you want to open the public hearing first.
Okay.
Take public comments.
Well, I don't have that fancy gavel, that's why I was... Okay, we'll go ahead and without gavel open the public hearing. Anyone from the public want to comment on the presentations you heard tonight? Please.
Yes. Primarily in order of the question, is this the sole bite at the apple for the public to comment on the 10-year master plan of the city and pass yay or nay on all the environmental
Well, there may be others that
impacts?
follow you, so
I
you
would
can
say
get them
that
started.
this is only the public hearing on the environmental impact.
I understand, but the environmental impact is generally something of near and dear concern to many of the citizenry. Is this our shot at 10 years of plan? That's a question.
It's an epic question, and I don't have an epic response, so...
Hi, good evening, members of the council. My name is Cheryl Tubbs. I'm a vice president for Loma Corporation, and we prepared the EIR under contract to the city, basically to prepare a program EIR so that the entire 10-year master plan would be looked at as an umbrella document, and to try to do enough detail of analysis so that some of the first phase buildings could get approved under this. Each of the applicants' plans that come forward will be reviewed in light of the city's development code and in light of this program EIR. And there were mitigation measures that would be implemented as conditions of approval on the acceptance of each of those before a grading plan or building plans are issued. So, in essence, some of the elements of the plan will get approved with this program level EIR and the mitigation measures that will be hopefully adopted tonight with your adoption of MMRP and certification of the final EIR. There may be other elements of the master plan that occur outside of or towards the end even of the 10-year phase, that there may be new environmental regulations that come forth that would require additional CEQA review. So that, again, would give the public opportunity. We have been working on this for at least since January, I think, of last year. We did have a notice of preparation which allowed public comment. We had a scoping meeting, which was noticed to the public for a comment period. The draft EIR went out for a 45-day public review, and now this final EIR has been noticed for 10 days to the public. There is a 30-day appeal period, and then essentially the clock ends for any comments or appeals to your action tonight.
Okay, I think that was a very comprehensive answer to your question.
But a good one, and you clarified all those previous procedural stages. Wow.
Okay, you got 3 minutes. You can see how much you can
do. As I guess a member and representative of the Healthy Loma Linda Coalition, I've attended a number of meetings, some of them hosted here at the city, where numbers of people of the community have engaged in wish lists and mapping of the things about the city that they hope to see and the things that they really hate. Now, I understand how, actually I'm somewhat in awe of the complexity of a modern project such as this and the amount of work and the trade-offs that take to go into it. But having said that, is it so inevitable now that we are locked in this paradigm where all the things that people wanted, such as walkability and green space and scale and trees, are sacrificed to the utility of the necessity of seismic correction and maintaining health care? Now, if I get a medical problem, I'm going to be the first guy to be happy that there's access quickly to the ER and the competent doctors with power going to all the devices it takes to keep me going. But I do see an ongoing march towards oblivion as collectively to handle our short-term goals. We're just unable.
We're approving a master plan for the medical center campus, not for the city of Loma Linda at this point.
I understand, but this is the anchor tenant of this city, and certainly the design and construction of that central corridor along Anderson. One thing I noticed that was totally in contravention to things people wished for, and I'm going to express it as what it is. It's a wish. That to have this torrent of these vertical car corridors, big wide lanes, high speed, with a couple of little pedestrian bridges to shuffle the people across that is exactly what the public voice was, what they didn't want to see. The cutting of existing trees, exactly what they didn't want to see. I can't weigh in and redesign a plan that has gone through that many cycles, but I do know that to be afforded I guess if this is a final EIR, the EIR with all those other, what we heard was mitigation. We heard none of the details of how some of these things are mitigated. And if it is so routinely easy to mitigate these things, then it's hard to even contemplate why a reduced scale of the project would result in an environmentally more beneficial one. I mean, that's a digression.
In a state with things like CEQA, I promise you that mitigation measures are not taken lightly by any means. But let me comment on some other things here. Going back to our previous encounters with your position on the Save Loma Linda, Healthy Loma Linda Coalition, Again, my viewpoint was to try to always explain that the central area that we've always been discussing is owned by the university. And I was always assured that you were in great talks with the university and they were cooperating 100%, and it was the big bad city of Loma Linda that was standing in the way of progress. And again, I would like to reiterate that if that was such a great relationship, I don't know why it wasn't reflected in this plan. So I think the issue that you bring up is more with the university and their future development plans as opposed to the city and what's presented to us for final consideration as far as what they want to do with their land and property. I don't know how to be more straight than that.
That's a fine point. I think
I think, bottom line, when we're coming back and talking about things like SB 1953, I would love to hear you debate some of our state legislators up in Sacramento, because you bring in very, very compelling arguments and awesome dialogue every time you come in and speak in front of us. And I just wish sometimes those people up in Sacramento that impose all these things on us down here, whether it be a university or whether it be a small city, I wish some of those people would hear that type of commentary, and they don't. And a lot of times we have to live within those restrictions. And believe me, it's very frustrating to try to run a small local government with that big brother in the room. So, thank you. I appreciate your comment.
Constraints are huge and at all levels. I'm just surprised that with the potential importance of this to the residents of this city, albeit it is the university's property and plan, and this is an extemporaneous, gosh, really? I mean, that's all I'm doing is saying it's kind of amazing that we're putting this in stone, and so many of the things that were aspirations of so many of the citizens just fall by the wayside for the expediency and the needs of seismic retrofit. So anyway.
If I can speak directly to Mr. Krause's comment, we did, in part of this, we did look very strongly at the community feedback and the community mapping. And one of the things that we've really pushed, and I think Councilman Daley looked at the kind of nibbled around the edges of the green space, and the north side of the new facility, we're removing a sea of asphalt and a sea of parking and a couple of scraggly trees out there, with a green space and a much more open area, and connecting essentially the new facility into Anderson and Star, redirecting the main entrance and lining that up with Prospect Street. And I know we'd all like to have, everything that we've talked about in these meetings happen overnight, but I think we're laying the groundwork for these things to happen over the course of the next 10 or 15 or 20 years. As Prospect's realigned, the campus kind of shifts where the front door is and really opens the potential then to open that new corridor. So I think this is the first step to get us to where we want to go on that path.
Good comment. Dick, come on up. One more comment.
Mr. Mayor, or Vice Mayor, I guess you call it at this point. Thank you for the opportunity. One thing that I hope will happen is that if you're going to build another parking structure on Barton, a main thoroughfare through town, plus the new existing hospital, or improved hospital, that the aesthetics would be taken very seriously to downgrade that from a tunneling perspective and height. Because if you go down Barton, everything is back away from the boulevard instead of right on it. This puts the hospital and the parking structure right on it. And it'd be like going down in LA. Now, there's a lot of ways it can be softened or changed, especially nightscape. I've seen a program where, I think it was over in Japan, they took colored bottles fill them with different colors. I mean, maybe yellow this time, next time it'd be red fluid. But you could take panels and say if you put panels in there. So when you go by, maybe 1 month, it's one color. You can store the panels. The next month, it's another color. But you keep people attracted to it, but it's not something that you see anywhere else. So we could be a forerunner in a lot of this concept ahead of time. If we put a little time in ahead of time and say, how would we like to see it? And people go by and go, wow, that looks great. Look at neon when it first came out. Or you go to places, maybe in the city, and you look at it, well, that looks pretty nice. Well, just flap up a building. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do, but you put it up, you don't think about these things. Then people come back, and after a period of time, it's same old, same old. So I hope that this future concept of looking at this whole thing, or when you put things in, turn around and say, let's put the best foot forward and make it something we'll really be proud of.
I'll tell you right now, I'm not a big fan of this change because it changes the whole look of our town. But I also understand the realities of what has to be done and the mandates.
Right.
And, what's the option? Do we have our hospital shut down and have it go somewhere else because we, as a city, try to put whatever pressure on? We just say we don't want that building, or we don't want that developed, or we don't want it redesigned, and it can't function here because we have to be one thing. I'm not prepared to see our heritage walk away or leave the town because of that. But I also don't, for the record, don't like the idea of changing the look of how it's all going to be. I mean,
well, what I'm saying is that not opposed to the building going up. It's the idea of what can we do to make that real appealing as you drive by it. Now, that's an exterior thing.
I personally believe the architects and everybody involved in the design are going to be looking at every single possibility in that regard, because, I mean, I know that. I'm confident that nobody wants to have a horrible eyesore in the middle of Loma Linda. It's one of those things, just like the academy. It's unfortunate because we want to remember the academy for what it is, but that's the future,
Well, it's like I told them, I said, if you look at where that museum area was, I said, in my mind, that could look like some of the things that you might see over in Egypt, the way they light some of the old ancient temples at night. Things could stand out real effectively if you design it and say, how does this concept look when you bring it in? I mean, there are things maybe that I haven't thought of. And if you mention it now, otherwise, like you say, you close the comments tonight. If the comments aren't in, I never heard about these other things until, just now. But just to get it on record and say, let's try it.
I think it kind of goes back to the apathy of most people. But, for example, we had 3 people here that were very, very concerned about the parking structure in their neighborhood, the current existing parking structure that's going in their neighborhood. And they knew and they saw the agenda, and I presumed they would be up here making comments about that new proposed parking structure. I actually was waiting for that to end nothing. And not to speak about things we shouldn't speak about, but Councilman Daly and I don't even ever remember them addressing this board. I think they might have addressed another board and confused it with council, but
before you got here.
That's unfortunately.
And just to reiterate, we are looking at the environmental impacts only of the project. As far as the aesthetics, the architecture, and anything beyond that, those will be dealt with building by building on the buildings that we have purview
Right.
over.
But just at least this goes in under the aesthetics portion.
You've been faithfully engaged, Dick, with this council for a long time now, and I think that you know that over the last 4 years in particular, we've placed a high value on beautifying the city in every way that we can, and certainly we intend to sustain that energy. And my sense is that the university and medical center are both in harmony with that as well. So I don't think this is an adversarial issue. But thank you for your comment. Any other comments, questions? Okay, how do we proceed? Close the public hearing. So without gavel, we will close the public hearing.
And then there are two subparts to item 3, A and B, and they're directly related, but I would take
them separately.
Take them separately. The environmental first.
Okay. Is there a motion regarding Council Bill R 2014-03? There's only two of you, so one of you has to step up to the plate here.
I would make a motion to adopt it.
Thank you.
I guess that means I have to second that motion.
Very good. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's a unanimous vote, and we...
Yes, and under our new Brown Act rules, we announce the decision that you have just taken, and the vote is unanimous, of course, the decision being approval of Council Bill R-214-03.
Do I need to read what that's about? Or?
Well, I've just done that. So.
Okay, very good. Okay, item B is up for a vote, or for a motion.
My turn?
Before you go on to that, we want to change the wording on item B to read approved precise plan of design 13-018 based on the findings, period.
Okay. Is there such a motion?
Can I ask what the purpose of that is?
Councilmember
Just for public consumption, the comment is to strike and subject to conditions of approval. So,
Councilmember
Mr.
Duper,
Bolovich.
the reason for that is because when the projects come to you on a case-by-case basis, there'll be conditions of approvals on those
Specific
Exactly.
projects.
That makes sense.
Okay. Again, I'll make the motion to approve the precise plan of design 13-018 based on the findings, I'm assuming, of the EIR.
And we're open for a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So we have just approved precise plan PPD 13-018 based on the findings.
And that was unanimous, and both actions relate to Loma Linda University Health Master Plan.
Thank you. We're getting accustomed to new rules here, so it'll take us a few months to get this figured out. When we get the real mayor in here, he's got it dialed in, I'm sure. Okay. I get paid extra this month.
Got some dinner out there.
By the way, we need a digital converter so we can watch.
Oh, you couldn't see any of this?
It says you could be watching Channel 3 if you had a digital converter.
They want $35 a month for that, and we're too cheap.
You can't rig something.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much for your help. And Mr. Bolovich. Oh, I guess I'm not the mayor anymore.
I get to spend quality time with you guys this time.
And we're loving it.
All right. This is a public hearing, first reading, Council Bill O 2014-01. This is regulating the on-site sale of beer and wine in conjunction with restaurants and restaurants and in hotels with a minimum of 50 rooms located in the C1 or C2 zones. We were asked by council to look at this. Historically, the city has limited on-site sales of beer and wine. We prohibit on-site sales of any distilled spirits, but beer and wine to eating establishments that provide full table service as part of the meal experience. What's happened over the evolution of restaurants and dining rooms and those types of places is typically a nicer, higher-end restaurant had a table, and they brought you took your order at the table, brought you your food. If you had alcohol with that, that was part of what they brought. As dining has evolved, there's actually high-quality dining experiences, or higher quality dining experiences, to where some portion of the transaction happens at a counter, to where you either order the meal there, or you take your food to the table, or they deliver food to the table, but the entire transaction does not occur at the table. So what we're looking at is a way to allow businesses that have beer and wine as part of their business model, that are those type of activities. Typically, a Chipotle does that, a Sizzler does that, Native Foods does that. So there are restaurants that are worth attracting.
Veggie Grill.
I believe Veggie Grill does. I know Native Foods does. So that is part of their model, and those are part of an expansion of our limited availability of restaurants. That's the first component of this. A second component, separate, is we looked at, since we were looking at the restaurant experience, we also looked at the other side of that hospitality piece is a hotel. We arbitrarily picked a number of 50 rooms so that we could tie this to a substantial property that would have some, for lack of a better word, one hotel room with a large bar attached to it, to the other side where it's actually a large hotel with a small beer and wine consuming portion attached to it. So the number we pulled out of the air was 50. Open. That's definitely open to discussion. The concept on that is that most national hotel chains cater to, and their bread and butter is business travelers or essentially frequent flyers, frequent stayers, and that type of customer, as part of their stay, requires some type of if not a public, but a private kind of frequent flyer lounge area. That essentially, for people that do that is their living room. I did that for several years of 300 nights in hotels, and you can only sit in your room for so long, and you don't want to be sitting in the restaurant or the lobby, and that is kind of the living room for that type of their bread and butter customer. And these are typically the Marriotts, the Hiltons, the Hyatts, those kind of chains that cater to that middle to higher end customer. That component is important to their business model and is something that we're excluding because our code prohibits essentially bar service as any part of an activity. So those are the two pieces: is beer and wine in a dining establishment. And I think if you go to the ordinance, the second page is very specific. It says on-site sale and consumption of beer and wine beverages in conjunction with the primary use of a restaurant. Once again, primary use is the restaurant. There's a minimum floor area of 2,000 square feet or greater, and that the service has to be in conjunction with food service, and that in the restaurant there is no separate bar service. So everything is consumed and happens as part of the meal, not as part of a bar portion. And Section 2 addresses the same issue. Section 2 addresses the issue in the hotel. that are allowed in the C2 zone, and the exception is that it's a hotel with a minimum 50 rooms. And it is open for your discussion. Or
Quick
open for
question.
questions first.
The hotel that we approved at the last meeting, how many rooms did that have?
87, I believe.
Okay.
87.
So if I can summarize your point, the types of businesses that we are hoping to attract to Loma Linda to build out our enterprise, that many of these have a condition that they have a permit to do this kind of thing, restaurants and hotels and so forth.
Correct. Those type of business, the hospitality type businesses, typically has that as part of their business model.
And I think in your report, you also shared some numbers about the potential tax implications for the city.
That is correct. What we're seeing right now is those, let me go make sure I'm getting the right numbers, that a typical kind of restaurant, like we have these kind of mom and pops in the regular restaurant places, are about $8,000 a year in sales tax revenue per location. When we talk about a restaurant in this issue, we're really not looking at the dollar value behind it. We're looking at broadening the dining experience and keeping our people from driving to San Bernardino and causing all that congestion at the Anderson interchange, and keeping these guys here at home. There is on the hotel portion an estimate somewhere in that $250,000 a year transit occupancy tax. So there is a significant financial impact to that.
Are there actually some possible hotels being considered that we might chase off by not doing this?
We have had interest from, without being as non-specific as possible, we have had interest from Hyatt, one of the Hilton brands, and one of the Marriott brands in the last 3 years that have looked at the building and or the sites here in the city, and for one reason or another have not chosen to be here. And to say that it's specifically because of the alcohol issue would not be a true representation, but I'm sure it measured into their evaluation.
Is there any possibility that those people eschewed us for whatever business reasons, and by changing this, we might bring in some kind of a low rent type hotel because now we allow this? Does this have a negative, drawing bad actors out there?
There's always that possibility. That was the reason that we did put a room number on that, which typically weeds out the 12-room roadside inn, or some deceptive model that is a couple of rooms and a bar. Typically, these are nationally branded chains, but that would be up to the Planning Commission and the Council on what type of hotel is approved and what the rooms are as they come forward.
Same question with restaurants. We have restaurants that want to come in here, that this is a condition of their moving into the city?
I have spoken with one of the restaurant chains that this is a vital part of their business model on being in the city, yes. As I understand it, it's make or break. Now, there may be other considerations that go into that, but that is one of their main issues on location in the city.
Are we aware over the last 5 years of any restaurants or hotels, motels that moved to one of our adjacent cities because of this issue? Or I assume it's a more complex assessment that they make than just this. But I'm trying to get a handle on how significant an issue this is?
Like I said, we've spoken to one of the Hilton brands and one of the Marriott brands in the last 5 years, and both of those brands have built something in an adjacent city. What all the factors are, I can't to enumerate everything down to the detail, but there are multiple components: location, traffic, and the ability to provide these amenities. The other one, the Hyatt that we've talked to, has yet to do more than talk in this region.
Let's say I know I have personally spoken to in the 4 years that I've been here with several different restaurant chains trying to entice business here, and a few of them specifically, and I'll name a couple that we have thought about that we thought would be good additions to the city. For example, like a Chipotle, and they absolutely tell me that their business model is standard and they won't alter because of advertising and consistency and all that from store to store. They will not alter their business model to make an accommodation for one particular city, and so likewise they would just choose to move just outside the border and still take our populace. So I think it's trying to understand what type of restaurant and business we want to attract.
And the way you've constructed the restaurant thing, you talked about a big bar at a little hotel, but what about could a gas station start selling booze and have one table? And if they've got let's say a 2,001 square foot gas station and one table. Could they sneak under this thing?
Well,
and become a bar?
The way it reads is the restaurant shall have a minimum floor area of 2,000 square feet. I would take that the area that's involved in food protection and service is 2,000 square foot, not the retail, the gas pumps, and the car wash.
Well, then what if they call it the morning and evening restaurant?
And then the other portion is that beer and wine is in conjunction with the service of food, and that it's consumption on site, and that there's no separate bar service. So we've kind of, theoretically, along your hypothetical model, I guess you could put a 2,000 square foot restaurant / gas station that serves beer as long as you drink it on site with your meal.
Oh, drat, they escaped with that case.
Once again, this prohibits, we're not touching any of the package sale requirements.
Now, we have gas stations, Chevron, do they sell beer and wine?
No. We have
so we don't sell, what is it, only Alpha Beta or not Alpha Beta?
You've been here a while.
It's getting
Stater
long
Brothers.
day,
So
long in the tooth.
shopping for
all
you
of
now
that.
that you're
Yeah,
a big
yeah,
politician.
Stater Brothers and Clark's are the only two retail outlets for package sale right now. If whoever occupies the old Fresh and Easy building, that building was built specifically to have enough square footage to allow package sale as well. I think it's over by 10 feet or 12 feet.
Again, that's was part of the Fresh and Easy model.
Yes, it was.
So should we change the language to be a little bit more explicit?
I'm
That
all ears.
The restaurant area, which includes food preparation, tables, and the immediate chair space around the tables shall exceed two. Well, I'm not so sure. There's a rash of person.
If we say the restaurant / food preparation service area shall be, then we would tie that purely to restaurant.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of adding a little bit more language to make it harder to loophole. your
Okay,
way out of
and
that.
the restaurant, food prep and dining. Do you want to count the kitchens or not?
But we're in the question and answer.
Food prep and dining area shall have a minimum of square foot, if that works. This is a public hearing, so I'll answer questions, then we do have to open it to the public.
What is your evidence? You make a statement in your staff report. What's your evidence that rarely do people go into a hotel bar and drink and leave without having a hotel room?
Personal anecdotal evidence of spending 3 years of 300 nights a year in hotels. Typically, and I've been known to go someplace to actually consume alcohol. Typically, and Councilman Duper deals with the people that abuse this extensively. A hotel doesn't typically bring people in as part of the party bar and leave, and certainly not as part of a beer and wine only bar. But
usually, and I mean, it's not a hard and fast rule, but usually hotel bars don't stay open the same hours that regular bars do.
Okay, so...
they close at like 10, 10:30, 11, and most of the bar guys are just warming up about then.
Do they have giddy hours or something, Right? I'm just trying to come up with euphemisms.
I don't want to sound like you know too much about this.
Some of them do, and some of them don't. But yes, some do have typically some reduced price hour or period.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm sure somebody in town is going to say, Taylor's used to be the only bar, if we do this. Taylor's used to be the only bar.
Actually, it wasn't the only bar. There was that bar that was in Mountain View and Redlands Boulevard.
Actually, Taylor's is not in the city.
That was Jack's bar.
That was before my time.
Oh, that was my entire childhood.
Thank you.
Everyone decided.
Yeah, Jack's daycare and
as part of this, both the C1 and the C2 zone require conditional use permits. So as these projects come in, we do have the ability through planning and through council to place additional conditions upon them as far as hours of operation, signage, access points, those type of things that would typically be placed as conditions on a business operation.
So are those part of this?
No, that's as each project comes in. Just like with the hotel, when you approve that with specific conditions as far as what their hours of construction are and where their parking is and those type of. There was a long list, if you remember, at the back of that packet of conditions. Each project has a laundry list of conditions. And then with each project, we would have the ability to place conditions on that project as they come on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, any other questions of staff? We can listen to our adoring public. Okay, I will open the public hearing on this topic. Come forward. Here's one taker. We really want to know what you guys think, so start thinking of your comment.
Thank you, Dick Wiley again. I don't know if I got that correct. You said restaurant. If you turn around and you apply as a restaurant, I would sort of put that wording in it. If you apply as a restaurant, because I'm thinking the Arco down here, I think they sell hot dogs, nachos, And if they want to stretch it and you say, okay, it's a restaurant, we serve food. So we got the beer, we got the wine. Well, it's not a restaurant. Again, you're stretching the terminology. That's what I'm thinking. If you get a permit as a restaurant, then it pertains. If you get it as a gas station and convenience store, that's a different title. Another thing that was interested in, Redlands has put in a new ordinance, I think, last couple months. If I recall right, it was about if I think they had to come once a year to learn about the law or some such thing. And I got thinking about here, I said, they don't want the beer and the wine in here. But when you get into the problem, not here, other cities, of selling, hey, go and buy me a six-pack. So a guy goes in and buys somebody underage a six-pack. And you start these stings, and you find out how much is out there. What I was thinking about is if, to save the city time and effort, at whoever is going to be responsible for overseeing this ordinance, at that person's convenience, they set up once a year, we're going to have a refresher class. Or maybe it's twice a year. But the place that sells this has to come once a year. And they listen to what the rules are and what the penalties are. Now, if you have a new employee that comes in, maybe you say every 4 months, within that 4 months period, that employee has to come and listen to what the penalties are. Now, when you get stuck with giving it to a minor or not doing the right thing, you've been told, and you were told either every year or every 6 months, that you were required to listen to this class. You sign in that I was there. They gave you the information. They say, you don't say, this is a specific time. And then you've got to change their schedule around this thing. It works around their schedule. If it's inconvenient for the hotels or whatever places that sell it, that's fine. But the idea being, they have been told at least once a year what the rules are, and when the hammer comes down, it comes down. And it may bring a little more revenue. I don't see that we're going to have that big of a problem, but I'm thinking, here's your enforcement. It's an easy way to say, you knew it within the last year. Well, I didn't comprehend or whatever, but just as a thought. But I think it's controllable. And
So it sounds like you're not opposed.
I'm not opposed particularly, no, to the idea, but it's the enforcement of some places that could want to sell more, coming in and saying, well, I can get away with it.
I'll let you know that oftentimes, and this isn't anything negative about the health department, but the health department is kind of their own world and they do their own thing, whereas opposed to anything that's governed with alcohol is controlled by ABC, Alcohol Beverage Control, and they're actually more of a law enforcement type of entity. So in conjunction with them and with their approval, law enforcement can go and inspect places at any given moment with anything related to alcohol, far more exceeding than, say, a health code violation. So in a sense, you actually have greater access to these restaurants and even the hotels, at least for that specific area, as far as our local law enforcement goes. So,
well, what I'm thinking is then that takes it out of their doing their other job to go in and do this, whereas if they get caught,
no, I'm just saying local law enforcement has more teeth and more ability. Once you start serving alcohol, you really have a lot more to comply with as opposed to just running a regular restaurant or a hotel where the health department may or may not come inspect you once a year.
Well, I'm not saying that people need to drink. If I go in, if I'm with you and I want to have a drink, that's fine. If I don't, that's fine. I mean, that's my opinion. But as I say, I leave it up to each individual to do what he wants. And this is why I'm thinking, but the idea of somebody trying to say, well, I wasn't aware that a new employee maybe hadn't been told. if they're required to go to this class, there's no excuse you didn't know it if you're serving the food or whatever, or the drinks. Then you've got this capability of going back and really putting the hammer to it and maybe bringing in more than just the fine. So, thank you.
Thanks. Any comments from anybody else? Come on forward.
I don't want to wear out my welcome here.
Well, I
invoke the spirit of Carrie Nation and the WCTU.
No, I just have a question.
I
It's just a
know you were
question.
part of the Healthy Loma Linda Coalition.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any words from them? Do they care?
I cannot represent them. I can't even represent myself on this one.
As one of them?
No, I mean, it's... I just had a question. I just didn't understand if you have a restaurant, a hotel restaurant lounge, will that lounge, beer, wine, bar area be mandated to serve food? You know the model where you have the little tables and it's kind of physically separated from the dining room. Would this ordinance contemplate that you can have that arrangement? Somebody could sit at one of those little tables and order beer and peanuts and not consume a meal.
As it's written, it is not required that the hotel situation serve food along with that. It's not a requirement. Typically, most places like that have whatever the nachos and French fries or whatever the real healthy food that goes with that.
Right. So the hotel does not, but the restaurant, well, a restaurant by definition wouldn't be set up.
The restaurant does require that this is part of food service and specifically prohibits bar service in a restaurant setting.
So you could not have a physically separated area that looked like a bar with smaller tables and the restaurant was otherwise, even if that part of that premises had a food menu to accompany the beer and wine service.
That is correct. In the restaurant setting, it's a restaurant that the alcohol service is ancillary to food service.
Okay, okay, thank you.
I have a question about that. Through the CUP process, can we limit hotel beer and wine sales to customers of the hotel that have a room? Or is there some kind of a state law that doesn't let you do that?
I don't think that would be practical or enforceable. I think that the ABC issues those licenses, and they typically enforce the alcohol regulations rather than the city.
But do they enforce regulations pursuant to our conditional use permit?
No. They only enforce their regulations.
But could we enforce hours, for example?
I'm not aware of any of that ever being done where it would be limited to hotel guests, and in particular, that would probably not be workable because hotels that have convention and meeting rooms would have visitors who may not be hotel guests but are using hotel facilities in conjunction with hotel purposes.
Okay. Any other comments? You could be very enlightening. As an esteemed member of the community, you have no opinion.
Let them all come to town. Let people pick and choose.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. There's nobody else to choose from except my mom, who lives in Indiana. Question of law enforcement. Do you guys have any feeling? I know we've got one of you who spoke, but do you have anything else to add about adding alcohol to a kind of a semi-desiccated town?
I would only say if it becomes where there are several establishments that we look at possibly adding a nighttime car specific for intoxicated driver detection. And that could maybe be funded through the ABC application or something through the code.
But it sounds like if it's restaurants up until 10 p.m. and hotels up till 10 p.m., do you have to do much of that? Or is it more the overnight bar kind of a thing that you get in trouble?
That's generally more the problem.
Okay.
Do we regulate sale of cigarettes along the same policies that we do? I mean, I realize we're not talking about restaurants and hotels here, but what about convenience stores?
We do not regulate sale of cigarettes. However, we do regulate consumption of cigarettes, which is absolutely
Depending on
unenforceable.
where they want to smoke them.
Well, which is absolutely unenforceable at this point.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get a handle on where's the guiding principle on what we already, on the regulations that we already have.
But as I said, we don't regulate the sale of cigarettes. We do regulate the sale of, package sale of alcohol, which we're not looking at changing at all.
And currently, there's only 2 facilities in the entire town where you can buy beer and wine.
There are only 2 facilities at this point that have enough square footage for alcohol package sale.
Isn't there a convenience store down on Redlands Boulevard?
Is the C2 store grandfathered in? Yes. Okay, so they were in existence before the city became a city.
And
so-
doesn't one of the gas stations have?
No. No, he would kill to sell beer and wine. But
What about the 76?
no.
No. Okay.
The new grocery store at across the street here has enough square footage to where theoretically they could apply for alcohol sales.
And what's the basis for associating square footage with the sale of beer and wine?
The concept behind that is what we're trying to do is get to eliminate the individual that would pull into the quickie shop, grab a 6-pack, down a couple of them, and hit the road.
Why can't they do that at Stater Brothers?
Typically, the shopper at Stater Brothers will pick up his 6-pack, take it home, as part of the grocery shopping, and consume that at home to where...
There's a lot more science to this than I guess I'm familiar with. I mean, it seems to me that either we don't permit it or we do permit it.
That was the logic behind it. How solid that logic is, I don't know.
Are there benchmarks out there with other cities that try to regulate alcohol and beer, alcohol consumption in their cities?
I do not know of any, and we'd certainly have to look outside of Southern California. There is one other regulation that all alcohol sales by state law is prohibited within 1 mile of the campus. So in this room, you could sell alcohol. The other side of the hall, you can't.
So we're right at 1 mile.
That's where the mile is. That hallway right there is just about the mile.
And the point of location of the campus is McGann Hall, or?
We're using on the easterly side the intersection of Shepherdson and Mound Street, there by the residence halls.
Okay.
And it's 1 mile by, not as the crow flies, the way the law is written, not as the crow flies, but by ground, typical transit.
And I understand that's in the state constitution?
That's a state alcohol law, ABC law.
And it's not in the Constitution?
It's not in the Constitution, but it is...
We've got the weirdest Constitution of any state I've ever seen.
It does restrict Loma Linda, La Sierra, and Santa Clara University.
Okay.
They are specifically named.
So even if we allowed complete alcohol sales, it still couldn't happen within a mile?
If you opened a Hooters, you couldn't open it on the other side of the hall.
So is Carl's Jr. right on the dividing line? Or?
Carl's Jr. cannot sell alcohol.
Okay.
The Thai place in the shopping center here can. The line is right here. They can. They have asked if they can, but they don't.
They don't have 2,000 square.
They do have 2,000 square feet?
Maybe it's a Mexican restaurant.
The Mexican one does because they're far enough down. It's right, the line is right at Carl's Jr. here.
See, I'm on a quest for some logic, and there's got to be some reason in here somewhere. If we say we're not going to permit it, we're going to be a dry city, we're not going to permit it. I understand that. That makes logical sense to me. Or if we say we're going to not permit certain types of establishments, but will permit beer and wine, then that makes sense. But I'm trying to understand how we're carving up what we permit and where we permit it and why we don't.
I think what we're trying to
Maybe
carve...
somebody at that end of the table can help me.
The logic behind what we're carving is to keep alcohol consumption off, people that are consuming alcohol off the streets, and to keep the negative things that come associated with public alcohol consumption.
But we want to attract their business.
But we do understand that that is part of what it takes to run a viable hospitality business.
I would think that the guy that wants to go get his booze and all that is going to be more likely to go get it from Stater Brothers than to go walk into a restaurant and ask for 6 bottles of beer and walk out. So it seems, I agree with you, I think it's kind of ridiculous.
And it is, once again, limited to on-site consumption.
But
so
I
we'd
think-
have to drink his 6 bottles.
I
at
think the
restaurant.
2,000 square feet provides a good function, because otherwise you could just have a bar that had, served peanuts as a restaurant. And
I think it's important to remember why we're even here, because currently we have restaurants in the city where you can have dinner and get alcohol. For example, that Mexican restaurant right across the street right here. And yet our quest for the last several years has been to bring in those perceivably unattainable restaurants that everybody wants to eat at, whether it be a veggie grill or a semi-healthy Chipotle or one of those type of places that we can't just quite seem to grasp, even though we say we have the demographics that will support your business. And I think what it boils down to is the bottom line is a lot of these businesses, it's just far too easy for them to go, well, I'm not going to change my model for you, I'll just go next door. And we lose out once again. And we're trying to accomplish two things. We're trying to accomplish something that benefits the city and brings in revenue, but also it caters to the desire of our residents and people that have been coming forward and speaking to us for the last couple of years. And as frustrated as they've been getting with what appears to them as slow, closed-minded government is really trying to do something, but yet here we are sitting at the dais discussing this for the last half hour and not moving forward with it. I mean, I think either we do or we don't. But it all boils down to what do we want to bring in. I mean, if we don't want to bring that in, then that's our answer. And then every time we have a group that comes up here, it has to be some of those businesses won't come here because this is what we have chosen to be, and I'm okay with that.
I'd throw in Dick Wiley again. I'd throw into the mix. I don't know if it's tomorrow night. I think there was a legal notice about down here at Mountain View and the off-ramp. There's going to be a gas station, convenience store. Now, where they're going to go for beer and wine, I don't know. But something like that, I'd be totally against that because you can get that and get on the freeway, and that's the wrong place to put them. But just, as far as looking a little ahead.
yeah, this doesn't even propose loosening that up. I could say that I've asked a lot of people from different walks of life, a lot of church-going people, a lot of healthy cities kind of people, and I don't detect any passion against this. And I expected a lot more passion against this, and I don't hear it. Not one person has come to me yet and said, absolutely not. Except maybe Ovi.
Well,
you heard one, I've heard none.
It'll be interesting because I remember not to pick on you, but the same statement was made by Peterson. Not a single person came up to me and
I
said,
know, but
"Don't build those
but
houses."
I'm not my predecessor on the council.
Well,
I
again-
don't sit around waiting for people to come up and tell me what a wonderful job I've done. I don't, I specifically asked a bunch of people about this, and I got not one negative response except from you.
I want to make several points and leave it at that. Dr. Daly asked the question about, well, why is it that what's the logic behind the rules that we have, and how does that apply to our community? I'm not sure there's a specific logic other than when part of the reason I ran to be on the council was that I always felt Loma Linda was unique in a number of ways, and that particular issue was development. But what makes Loma Linda unique is the fact that we put in place some rules that tend to match the values of the community. Now, over the years, that has changed, and in regards to alcohol, it's not challenging to have it in Loma Linda. I mean, there's plenty of restaurants who already serve it. I think the ones on California both do, kukas and kebabs. I think they both serve alcohol. So it is possible for restaurants to serve alcohol. They've been able to work within the rules and still, without us having to change them. And if you want to buy alcohol, you can go to Staters, you can go to Clark's. Pretty soon we are going to be able to get it here at the grocery store across the street. I think when Fresh and Easy opens, you're going to be able to get it there. So the issue is not access to alcohol, but rather the rules that we put into place and how does that apply to community standards. My concern is that we're basically being asked to change this for one reason alone, and that's because it brings in revenue. And I'm not sold that that should be the only reason we would want to do that.
I don't think by far that's not the only reason. I think the reason is we've been repeatedly asked and asked and asked by our constituents to bring in some services that are, healthy and that are different and they're options and they're not the same old whatever. And the problem is that those groups have the model that they don't want to alter that model for us. Now, here's the thing. You could bring in a veggie grill that has that model, and maybe nobody in the city will order alcohol when they go there, but they're going to order plenty of veggie burgers and veggie whatever, and they're going to do great business, and our residents are going to be happy it's here. They don't actually have to order the alcohol, but to get that chain here, I think if you really, truly, truly believe, and this is going to hurt, I'm sorry in advance because I love you, but if you really, truly, truly, truly believe that one of those chain stores will alter their business plan just for us, you should buy more Apple stock.
I'm not, how do you call it, I'm not asking them to change their plans. I think there's plenty of opportunities for other businesses. We've had restaurants come to this town for the last 20 years. So it's not like suddenly, because of this laws, we haven't had any restaurants. In fact, I'm not concerned whether they're a chain or not. I mean, most people want options. I actually don't even, I'm not so concerned about debating whether we should have a particular business here or not, because to me it's not a winning argument. I personally want a restaurant row with large restaurants where people can congregate and eat, and obviously those restaurants are going to have to serve alcohol. But it's really simple. We have a rule. You have 2,000 square feet. You have table service, and you can do it. I'm not convinced that there is this outcry in the community that says, I need to have this type of restaurant, and boy, I can't seem to be able to get it simply because the business owner came up to me and said, I need to have alcohol. That's in reference to restaurants. In reference to hotels, I looked up a few hotels in the area. There are over 80 rooms, and none of them actually serve alcohol. So we're actually making an exception in Loma Linda so they can actually start serving it. There's plenty of hotels that have been built that don't even serve it. Now, mind you, they're probably next to restaurants, so they can't even compete. But we did approve an 86-bed hotel that didn't articulate in front of us saying, by the way, we want you to approve this, but keep in mind that you have an ordinance, and if you don't change that ordinance, we're not going to build in the city. They moved forward knowing specifically what our ordinance was. They didn't ask us to change the ordinance before we moved forward. So I'm not sold that a hotel is not going to make a decision whether they're coming here or not. I am concerned, though, that if this ordinance is changed and the way it's worded, you will be able to have a bar behind City Hall. There's no doubt about that. There is one of the hotels that is being proposed is not going to easily be 50 rooms and want to have that. Personally, I've talked to lots of people. I've asked them, and a fair number of them are very much opposed to this. I think there's plenty of opportunities for us to provide services to our residents without having to change the alcohol law or keep it the way it is. There's ways to work around it by having certain businesses, and it's worked well. So I don't see a particular pressing issue that tells us we have to do it at this point.
Just for my own clarification, what was not part of the earlier conversation that we had is that we've got multiple restaurants in the city that already are serving beer and wine. I wasn't aware of that. So what specifically are we addressing that's a change? If we already have restaurants and multiple restaurants that do, what is it specifically that this changes?
This is, so currently, if you sit down and you have a waiter come to your table,
yeah,
you can serve beer and wine here in the city. Currently. But what we're talking about are a couple of restaurants that we really can't talk about whether or not we're actually in negotiations with these restaurants, but we're talking about places like, let's say, Chipotle, where you walk in, you walk up to the counter, and they serve you at the counter, then you take your food back and you sit down at a table. So there's no
you
waiter.
order at the counter and they take your food
Or
to
they
your
take it
table.
out to you, but there's no waiter coming out to you. So under our rules, they would have to employ waiters that would come out to your table and take your order, which, as you know, in a Chipotle example, that absolutely is not their model, and they will not change that model for our town just to comply with us.
So we've already made the decision, or the earlier city council made the decision to permit beer and wine in restaurants. Now we're talking about what kind of restaurant.
Correct. All we're doing with this change is loosening up the table service requirement. That's it. Still 2,000 square feet, still whatever else, and that's just one slight change. Yes, please.
Vern Miller, resident of Loma Linda, born here. I just don't know why we're complicating this whole issue. Why don't we let people just make their own choices? The hospital serves vegetarian menu. Counselors does. Patio Pantry does. Probably some other places here. Vegetarian place down in Waterman. We're taking people's choice away. And when Carl's Jr.'s came to town, we specified they had to serve veggie burgers or they couldn't come to town. Other people made flimsy excuses from the South Hills that we don't want the class of people that the Carl's Jr.'s would attract to the city. And I stood up and I said, there's no difference in the people that come to the hospital emergency room every day of the week, 24/7, than what would come to a Carl's Jr. But that wasn't liked by some, but that's okay. I think we're taking people's choice away. If the hospital's going to serve healthy food, vegetarian food, vegan food, all the rest, let them go there and eat if that's the choice they have. If they don't have that choice, let them eat wherever they want. We can't control people's lives for them, and we can't make their decisions for them. We can only live the example before them and offer good foods at the hospital cafeteria and some of the other places, and let it go at that. Don't complicate the matter.
So it sounds like you wouldn't be opposed to opening up bars in town.
We already have one in down Taylor's.
Yeah, okay.
Been there since 1936.
It's not in the city, it's in the sphere. We could do a little micro-annexation, have ourselves a bar.
That keeps the police and the sheriffs in business.
Okay, I think we've... Mom, do you want to comment? I guess If you don't want to come, I'll close the public session.
I really don't see why Loma Linda is going along with the rest of the world. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, you're the first one I've talked to. Okay, thank you. She's the one that, yeah, I didn't ask her. She doesn't live here. So I'll close.
I don't live here, no.
I'll close the public hearing then, and all the public has spoken. What do you guys want to do? If we change any of it, we have to do another first reading, right?
This is the first reading, so you can make amendments this evening, and then it would go to the second reading the next meeting.
So amendments don't require another first reading? Okay.
After tonight, they would. The motion would be to introduce on first reading and set the following hearing as scheduled, as recommended.
I'll make that motion.
With that language, with the change in verbiage that we already agreed, I believe, suggested by the mayor.
Yeah, just a little bit more strict definition of what a restaurant space is.
So on
And food preparation.
We'll trust you to come up with the
9A
language.
says the restaurant, food and dining area shall have a minimum floor area.
Yeah.
Okay, I make that motion.
Okay, is there any interest in, first of all, is there a second? Okay. Is there any interest in separating these two issues because they're different issues? Or is the hotel issue and the restaurant issue?
I'm fairly confident that even any project still has to come to us under the conditional use permit. So I'm comfortable with the language as written. I don't foresee us having 17 50-plus room hotels pop up here in the city overnight. I think it's going to even be a stretch that we get the 87-bed one, and just because they came in here and got approval for the project doesn't mean they're going to start it. So, and again, with any of the decisions that this body makes, things can always be changed down the road. So I'm comfortable with the current motion.
I have a question for clarification. Does that prevent any of the existing businesses from changing their practice in order to accommodate this? In other words, if you already have 2,000 square feet, now you can start selling alcohol?
It would not prevent it, however, they would have to go through the conditional use process.
And the same applies for the 2 hotels that we have in town.
Correct. So
The hotels.
actually, there's only one.
We don't have anything that's
The
over
other
50
hotel
room.
under or actually preparing to be built is within a mile of the university, isn't it?
They are outside the mile.
They are.
Yes. The sword shop on that end is right at the mile mark.
Okay.
We've had this question a couple of times.
I'm obviously not going to vote in favor of this, but I would urge the council to actually consider changing the section about the hotels and making it for a much higher room. But obviously, I cannot address that since you'll be voting on it as a 50-room. So, but I will be voting no against it. Well, but the way the motion stands, it's the way it's written. So you would have to have a separate motion, but that's something that you guys would have to decide.
Well, it could be a friendly amendment. Do you guys care about the 50, 75, make it 56, 58? Do I have 60?
I just don't see the whole viability of having more than 1 or 2 hotels. I mean, even in the next 20, 30 years, more than 1 or 2 hotels that have over 50 rooms. Where would they be? Where would you put them?
You've only been here for 4 years, but we've had a number of proposals of pretty small hotels. Of course, they haven't really seen the light of day, but it'll happen.
When you say
eventually.
small hotels, you're saying 50-plus room hotels, that's a small hotel?
Yeah, yes. In my view, that's small. Versus, in fact, even the 80-room hotel, I think is kind of small. I think a large hotel should be more like 100 rooms plus. So we've had plenty of folks proposing small hotels. So 50 room, I think the one over by Lebinsky's property was under 50 rooms that we approved. How many was it?
23.
23 rooms, okay.
And that one's within a mile.
Yeah.
That one is, I've got to get the tape measure for that one.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, it's under 50 rooms.
No, it is. But I'm saying is there are people who are going to propose based on their, property needs and everything else. So anyway, I've spoken my piece. I know where I stand. I'm comfortable with it. So you guys move forward.
Is there anybody interested in splitting out the votes? You said no. Keep them together? Hotel and restaurant? What do you think? Okay. Yeah. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to make this the first reading and set a second reading for a specific date, being the next meeting in February 11? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion about it? Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
Okay, we have 4 votes in favor and Mr. Popescu opposed. And we have just counted this as the first reading and set a second reading for February 11 for Development Code Amendment DCA 13-114 regarding regulations on on-site sale of beer and wine as listed in the agenda. So the next item is our consent calendar.
I have a question on an item.
Which item? Go ahead.
Item number 9, request for water service. I'm having a hard time identifying where the property is and how many acres are we talking about?
It's on the south side, Barton Road, kind of west of New Jersey, which is, New Jersey is the one with the traffic signal going south behind, south of Heart Surgical Hospital, that intersection.
Okay. So this property
It's
is
dirt right now.
is requesting water. Why?
Because he would like to build a house there. And it's in the county area.
Okay, and they're building what?
A house.
One house?
Yes.
Okay. And how many, what's the size of the lot?
Do you know?
I did not see that.
It's in the county area, so to be able to get water, he had to come in and request for pre-annexation.
It would be over.
No, it just said that if we decide to annex, he can't oppose that. We haven't seen a house plan yet. He just...
The lot would be over 7,200 square feet, or we wouldn't approve it by Measure B.
Yeah.
It
I wasn't...
says a quarter acre.
Okay, yeah, okay. Where did you see that?
That's 10,000. That's on page 2 of the item.
9.
It says a quarter acre. That's 10,000 square feet.
I'm not seeing it, but I take your word for it. I just wanted a clarification as to, okay, on there. I see. As to what is it that he needed to water for? So it looks like it's just for one lot. Okay. Thank you. That was it.
Okay, is there a motion on the consent calendar then? Okay, any other discussion about this? Not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's the opinion of the chair. It's unanimous. And do I have to list everything? Or just say the consent calendar was approved?
Consent calendar.
The consent calendar was approved. Thank you. I'm thankful for that.
That does encompass all the items listed in the agenda under consent calendar.
Okay, the next item is old business. There's none. New business, none. Reports of councilmen.
Shop in Loma Linda.
For all your
Apple products?
Yes, at the bookstore. New iPads, no iPhones.
City council meeting is February 11, correct? In spite of my best efforts, I'm not going to be in town that day, actually that week. So, I mean, you'll still have a quorum, I'm just letting you know.
Okay. Turn yours on for a reason? Okay, okay. Okay, any reports of officers?
Yes, tomorrow night is the Planning Commission meeting. The developer from the proposed Veterans Clinic on Redlands Boulevard will be doing a presentation. This is not a discussion for the Planning Commission, but they will be presenting the project. So if somebody wants to see what's going on and what's out on the horizon, that's a good time to see it. 7 o'clock.
Okay, any other reports of officers? Okay, then City Council is adjourned, and the City of Loma Linda City Council as successor agency is called to order. Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Would the public like to speak on any items not on the agenda? Seeing none, the consent calendar is there for your motion. Okay, any other discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's unanimous. The consent calendar is approved. We are adjourned on that agenda. The next agenda is the Housing Authority. Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Would the public like to speak on any items not on the agenda? Hearing none. The consent calendar.
I'll move it again.
Okay. Any other discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's unanimous. The consent calendar is approved. Are there any member reports? Any reports of officers? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.